all the students' information to the faculty member in question, and that shortly after that, they would then send, in a preponderance of caution, send an email regarding this information to no one, such that they fail to take any action in that case. In 2018, or in November, the professor then goes on to contact the student after an informal no-contact directive, and a formal one is put in place, which is then violated in December, which Title IX does not respond to the violation of the formal no-contact order. And at the same time, Title IX returns that they believe no sexual harassment was met, and they are closing their investigation into this case. Simultaneously with that, student B comes forward to the university with allegations after not being contacted by the university as requested by student A. And then in January, they submitted 22 pages of text and documentation that we excerpted from. It takes until February for the first email contact with investigators, and the investigation will theoretically start. However, a month goes by with no movement by the investigation team, and that petition we referred to earlier goes out. 3 days after that petition is released, the first contact is made by investigators with students. However, those investigation notes had to be then reviewed by the students and were heavily returned because of widespread errors regarding names, specific allegations, and other information about the faculty member in the investigator's notes. May 2019, which is kind of where we are now, was supposed to be the end of the original investigation. As of yet, there is no formal end in sight. Just to point out that this means that since August, the school has had allegations about this professor, and we're now approaching several hundred days of a formal investigation theoretically being in process with no real formal results or statements by the school. Yeah, next slide.
Next. All right, so now we're going to talk about the proposed reforms that we sent out alongside the statement the Basque School of Engineering organizations made. The goal of these reforms is really to address a number of issues that we found within the faculty code of conduct and related documents and procedures regarding faculty discipline. What we found is that the FCC really doesn't protect students and really isn't built for mitigating conflicts between students and faculty. Next slide. All right. So when we talk about our first goal, protecting students, we want to take a few steps to do this. The first one we want to do is increase the education and access to resources that students have in regards to this issue. There's a myriad of different reporting tools available, Title IX, hate bias, going through an official FCC complaint, so on and so forth. And really there's not a lot of information about what that process looks like. And we want to provide that to students. We want to strengthen the safeguards, specifically safeguards around stopping leaks that happen in this case. What happened is that Title IX sent an outreach email to student A saying, "Hi, we received your report from the dean," and when they sent that outreach email, they also sent that to the accused faculty member. And they admitted that that was their mistake. And so we want to really address the safeguards there, and we want to improve those. And then we also recognize that graduate students in particular are in a really tough spot. Often they depend upon their advisor for funding, visas, opportunity. And if the faculty advising is abusive, then they're stuck with them. And so we want to create some sort of office, some sort of role whose job it is to receive reports from students and say, "Oh my goodness, there's something wrong here. We should just, before even an official complaint goes forward, let's get you a different advisor. Let's hook you up with somebody who's going to, move your education forward, but not leave you stuck in this system." Next. Okay, so jumping into the faculty code of conduct. It's really important to note that the faculty code of conduct and the discipline surrounding it is the only way by which Senate level faculty can be disciplined for their conduct. So really everything is derived from this document. This document was written in the 1960s, pulled primarily from an organization that recently wrote an article about how Title IX infringes upon academic freedom. So there are a few issues that we have with the SEC, and really what we would be focused on would be, can we create a student advisory board to go through the SEC and strengthen it and point out the problems that we have. Next. Yeah. So the current faculty code of conduct complaint form requires that a complainant put in their name, their campus address, their phone number, and email address, I believe. And then all of this information along with all supporting evidence. In the case that a Title IX investigation is initiated, all of that is shared with the respondent, the faculty member. And obviously in a case where this is a student and a faculty member, there's a big power imbalance there, which can get really nasty. And so what we want is we want to create a specific complaint form for students that outlines a slightly different process and doesn't require this information to be shared.
Sorry. So just to clarify, are you saying that the information that a person that is experiencing harassment submits is shared to the person that they're...
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yes. Everything in the official complaint you make is sent directly to the person you're accusing. Yeah. And there are there's one exception to this, which is in the case of they decide that a Title IX investigation is necessary, in which case the Title IX investigation proceeds, and it should proceed without the complainant's information being released. Obviously, in this case, that is not true.
And it's also, that's pretty common too. I've been told that some folks that happens way more often than it should.
Yeah, they have a bad system in place that is very prone to human error. Yeah, so that is the one exception. And then, unfortunately, after the conclusion of that investigation, I believe that information is still released to the faculty member. But it's only after the investigation concludes the recommendations are made. So yeah, we would like to create a different process for students, because really this faculty code of conduct complaint form was created to mediate conflicts between faculty members. And then it makes a lot more sense for you to know who you're being accused by, because the power is fairly equal. But in cases of students making complaints, there's no reason that this should be true. All right, next. Okay. The other step we'd like to take is we'd like to empower advocates for students within the administration. We do believe that there are people here who do want to help. We think that they generally don't have the right tools to be able to help students. So the Office of Conflict Resolution was created out of the corpse of what was the Ombudsman's office. And that they deal with conflict mediation. And then also, if you don't want mediation, they're a resource for how these procedures work. And we'd like to see them empowered with more resources and potentially funding to give students that resource. And then we'd like deans or chairs or someone within the department to create a list or to compile low-level abuses or harassment that don't quite by themselves constitute a violation of policy or something that the university would pursue. But if they found this evidence a pattern of abuse over a long period of time, then the dean would submit a FCC complaint on behalf of all the affected students. Okay. So what we'd like from you all is we'd like you to endorse that if the investigation finds that these allegations have merit, that the executive vice chancellor, who we don't know who that exactly that's going to be, but the executive vice chancellor should seek termination of employment of this professor. So push for the student advisory board, the SEC, and if you're interested and you have expertise, we'd love for you to join it, to get involved in that issue. And then we put together a formal resolution that we'd like you to endorse that Alicia will now present.
I expect you put these on the same. But give us a lot more traction as we try and move forward with these reforms. Yeah, bug resolution. Yeah. So, and then could you like, zoom in as much as possible? Okay. All right. So essentially what I did is I went through the faculty code of conduct, which is UC-wide. That document is APM 015. And essentially for the first few whereas statements, I cite that discrimination is not allowed and sexual harassment is not allowed. Section A requires that professors demonstrate respect for students as individuals and adhere to their proper roles as intellectual guides and counselors and avoid any exploitation, harassment, or discriminatory treatment of students. And then kind of the next few essentially say no discrimination of race, color, sex, religion, etc. Sexual violence is not permitted. Section B denotes violence, and then here's a separate issue, violation of canons of intellectual honesty, such as research misconduct and or intentional misappropriation of the writings, research, and findings of others is unacceptable conduct, and that will become relevant in a minute. Yeah, sorry, just scroll. Thank you. Great. So, sexual harassment is a thing. Here, now we get to the point where we introduce the investigation. So there is an ongoing investigation of a professor in Baskin. And of course, this case deals with sexual harassment, racism, sexism, all of the trigger warnings we mentioned before. Continue. So, I mean, this professor makes lewd comments towards female students. They refer to non-white and Arab students as terrorists. Repeatedly used the epithet of anal rape as an analogy of his criticism to like, when he's about to like, criticize their work and say, are you ready to get anally raped? Essentially, he has engaged in unlawful discriminatory pay practices based on race and nationality, and also threatened the lives of these graduate students under his purview. Additionally, this professor potentially acted in violation of the U.S. Currency and Foreign Transaction Reporting Act by coercing a graduate student to carry $9,500 into the country. And also, this professor engaged in academic dishonesty by manipulating authorship on research papers. And also, once these grievances were filed, this professor then acted in retaliation by inhibiting and encouraging other senior members of the department to inhibit this graduate student's, or the formation of this graduate student's master thesis committee. Sorry, this was pretty. All right, let's go to writing. Could you scroll a little more, please? So, okay. So, and like, even before any of this reported, like, these actions were known to and witnessed by other senior faculty, staff, and members of the administration. So again, as we mentioned before, this isn't new. This was known, and nothing was done until these students came forward and filed official grievances. And it's really a symptom of a wider cultural issue. As we mentioned before, when we initially heard the allegations, we thought it would be resolved. Sorry, what was that?
Resolved. It would be resolved.
No. That it could be various professors in the department doing this. Like, we were surprised to find out it was this professor when we thought it could easily be that professor or that professor or that professor. Like, this is a widespread issue, and these actions refer to a specific case, but it's an issue. And again, yes?
Yeah, just to that point, I was wondering if y'all had any conversation about like making this more of a general thing, or maybe making it like including something of like, yes, we're talking about a specific professor, but there are also like it's like a larger culture in engineering.
Yes.
I know about like Ethan Miller and like all his fucking blog posts about anchor babies and illegal immigrants. So like if y'all look up UCSC anchor babies, like you'll find him. It's like Ethan Miller.
No, just Google Ethan Miller.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
We're trying not. Oh, so it's an issue in the department. We're trying not to name names. In this resolution, we do note that this is a symptom of a wider systematic, cultural, and structural issue within Baskin and the UCSC community.
and we have
So-
maintained that constantly throughout all of our releases and statements that we think this is indicative of a wider problem within the entire community, and a problem that is somewhat derived from the policies that are in place, which is why we released the list of reforms. Those lists of reforms we'd like to see applied campus-wide.
So again, as Z noted when she was talking about the timeline, student A came forward August 2018. 100 days later, nothing happened until student B came forward on December 10th, 2018. And then, based on student A's statement, Title IX stated that the complainant's allegations do not meet the prima facie requirement of a violation of SVSH, that's sexual violence, sexual harassment policy. What is prima facie? That essentially says even if everything you say is true, like let's say we do the investigation and everything you say is true, that doesn't even violate our policy, which again, sexual harassment policy is listed higher in this, but I don't think y'all need to be taught what sexual harassment is. So, and then as we mentioned before, Title IX actually forwarded the information of one of the complainants to this professor, and Title IX also admitted fault. They said this should not have occurred, and unfortunately, this system is set up in a way that future human errors are likely, which is unacceptable, especially given the seriousness of what happened. Like, Title IX acknowledges that the system doesn't work, which is why we're trying to create reforms to change it, but it doesn't work. And then, again, the current system fails to address faculty misconduct and doesn't even empower an investigative body to resolve these matters. Like it says, oh yes, there will be an investigation. By who, what timeline, what body is created to start investigations of grievances submitted through the FCC or faculty code of conduct. So that doesn't get addressed.
Quickly, you have like 5 minutes over time on this. I'm not being really like this with time because one, this is crazy important, and two, we don't have much of it. Like we have like a meeting anyway, you know what I'm saying? But
we want you to post this next week.
I just want to check, how many people, are you good? Cool.
We're almost done, like 5 more minutes. We're almost at
Take
the
the time
end.
you need, I just wanted to double check.
Okay, so
Thank you so much.
right now, oh, stop. Okay, so right now, this professor can be placed on paid involuntary leave by Marlene Trump acting in her capacity as the executive chancellor. And so there are a few things that we would like from you. So finally, we get to what we want. Therefore, be it resolved that we ask you to endorse that this case be constituted as a rare and egregious case, whereby the chancellor may be authorized by special action of the regents to suspend the pay of a faculty member on involuntary leave pending a disciplinary action. So right now, he's on leave, but still paid. We don't think he should be paid. So if y'all could endorse this as a rare and egregious case, we can suspend his pay. That would be great. Second thing, if these allegations are found to have merit, we would like y'all to urge the Chancellor of UCSC to consult with the Regents and the President to proceed with dismissal of the professor. The reason why we can't just say have the Chancellor fire him is because this professor has tenure, so technically we have to follow what is laid out in APM 016, section 2.6. And then one more, the very last thing to the bottom. Finally, would y'all endorse our reforms? So again, the list of reforms that Evan just took for you, and a separate document that also should be already on your agenda. If you could go over that with your spaces, come back and vote to endorse the list of reforms with our 2 other asks, that would be lovely. And yes?
So the first one, sorry, I'm trying to look at the exact language, but the first one says the rare and egregious. Like, what does that mean? Like, how would
It's
something
not
be-
elaborated on in the policy. So the policy is that the chancellor may place someone on involuntary leave at any time if there's an issue of student safety. And then it says, in rare and egregious cases, the chancellor may also take action to suspend pay. It does not elaborate at all on what rare and egregious is.
Yes, was written in 1966.
No.
It was updated in 87?
Well, this policy is not the FCC. This policy is APM 016, which is specifically related to faculty discipline and elaborates upon that. So this is not the FCC.
I had your exact this.
Well, I mean, it was essentially like, I mean, the main thing was like, y'all, this isn't like a time, like a deadline thing, right? Like, we can't wait until next Tuesday, or should we?
Oh, y'all have to vote tonight. If you could take this back to your spaces, I mean, like, we made the presentation especially detailed, so y'all can just share it with whoever. We want to get this out there and known.
I do think it's important to note that we are approaching the end of the quarter, and in historically and previous cases such as this, engineering and administration and those who are conducting investigations such as this have a history of kind of time stalling and kind of just waiting for time to elapse, wait for students to kind of leave, and then sweep things such as this under the rug. So yes, while we are working on many avenues to make sure that light is kind of shed on these issues and that someone pays attention to this, it's also important that we are approaching the end of the quarter and people realize that action, or at least action that can be taken as fast as possible, will be optimal.
Yeah, definitely. I don't anticipate there being an issue progressing this, but I think with SUA, like, we need to bring it to.
Right.
Absolutely. I had another question, sorry, just next to that. I think you were working on, I don't know, were y'all going to talk about the software as well, or?
No.
Okay.
We're later. That's not this.
I do think it's important to note that we kind of got introduced to this by the petition that we spoke about earlier, and this was kind of engineering organizations and concerned engineering students coming together and realizing that there was a systemic issue that needs to be addressed. But this isn't just inside of engineering. This affects UC Santa Cruz as a whole, and by extension, the entire student populace. I think it's amazing that we have achieved what we have in such a short amount of time, and we are making progress into making sure that this issue is heard. We worked with IO, who has been an amazing help to us, and I hope that when you guys do go, you take into consideration all the evidence we presented, all the points we've made, and make sure that you guys get back to us. Sorry about that. It's nice.
I don't know if you want to go on that.
Oh, you're doing staff. Cool. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, first of all, for doing all of this work. Yeah, this is heart-wrenching and, yeah, really, really, really horrible. I'm very angry.
Sorry.
Yeah, and it's good. Like, let's be angry about it. I wanted to ask a little bit about the reforms because.
Absolutely.
So, part of what you were speaking about was that you wanted to see if there could be some kind of resource for graduate students who are facing abuse from their faculty advisor.
Yes.
And something I know about graduate student faculty advisor relationships is that you have to be specifically selected by the faculty member in order to be able to be admitted to the school at all, and how you kind of see that like working in terms of like what does a resource look like? Because I mean I guess my question would be like, how do you just get somebody out of that like faculty person's purview? Because like that's literally their entire existence. Like their entire existence, unless they find somebody else to take them, which there may not even be somebody else that's like doing even similar kind of work here. It could be just that one person that they came here for, and if that person's treating them badly, then like how does that look, or like what kind of resources are you looking at like wanting to create, and like how do you think that that's going to happen? Because I guess what I would be worried about is like we create a resource, but then it's like, you can go there, but what now? I like can't go to school anymore, because like this person was everything for this school,
Well, I will say that in this case, we have seen that one of the complainants has shifted their work to a different professor, so it is possible. I wouldn't say that the goal of this reform is that it would be applicable in every case. There probably will be times where somebody might have to leave the university because of abuse. We would hope that, especially in egregious circumstances, that the university would take action to fund them in a way that isn't directly derived from their advisor. And additionally, really the idea is to help people identify like who in their department might be able to take them on, who's doing related work, so on and so forth, work from there.
I want to add to that, not all residents actually enter tied already to a faculty member. Many do, that helps you through the admission process, but it's not uncommon, especially in engineering, for students to enter technically without being directly connected to any faculty member yet. They're encouraged to connect themselves to one quite quickly. I believe the goal is within the first quarter, but many of the engineering master students do not initially have direct faculty mentor. Particularly as in this case, if they're coming from their undergrad here, directly into the master's program.
Thank you.
Hey y'all. I just want to say thank you so much for coming and presenting and going through all the work that you've done. And I also want to say on behalf of the SUA, I want to completely apologize for tonight. What's happening is a service to the undergraduate student body that we put forward there. We need a week to vote on resolutions, and we need a week to vote on things presented today. And because our constituents who are not here, which are not, Zach, how many excuses did you get from tonight's? At least one, great. So we need to ensure that our members are coming here. SUA, the work that they've been doing, I've seen everything from the backhand, and these folks are doing the work and organizing that SUA should be committed to every single week. These are engineering students, these are presidents of organizations, these are full-time students, these are engineering students, these are folks who did not say that they wanted to get into organizing or activism, they did not say I want to be a part of the SUA. They see an issue happening in their own circumstance, and they're taking initiative, and they're taking action, while we debate things that I feel like are just not centered on always the progression of our campus, and also we miss folks who are not, necessarily here to vote and to add on the quorum. So I just want to close by saying I'm sorry that tonight the SUA really did fail you in a very way that's doing disservice to the undergraduate student body. Each three college reps represent 1,800 people. That's 1,800 people that are not being, their voice is not being heard because they're missing. And so I want to encourage everyone in this room to reach out to your friends, to reach out to your SUA members, to reach out to your constituents, and ask them to come here tonight, like right now. If not, be ready to prepare an emergency meeting, because we're not going to let down students who have been working tirelessly, who have been trying to fight the sexual violence and combating the issues that we don't even bring to the space at all. We're not going to let them down because we didn't want to show up for whatever reason. So I need you to communicate with your friends and get them to come tonight. If not tonight, be prepared to meet and be willing to not just come to the emergency meeting that we're going to convene, but also get your friends and your folks, your SUA members to come. If people do not want to be a part of the SUA, if they do not want to be having voting power or voting position, then they cannot be a part of it. But this is doing a service, this is disappointing, this is sad, it's a reflection on a lot of different things. I'm going to also take it personally because I'm the president, and at least the one thing I should be ensuring is that we have folks to come and vote on things. So this is really disheartening and disappointment. And I really just encourage y'all to take what has been said today to heart and realize that we literally cannot vote on something dealing with sexual violence happening to other students because we don't have 5 people, right? So, well, we can't vote next week if we don't present it this week. So, we can suspend the violence. That's beyond the point. Please get your folks. If they don't come next week, then what happens? Right? Not this week, not next week. So thank you for your
Yes, so one very, very last note. I want to thank you all for listening today. I will be coming around and collecting these. If I'm correct, the PowerPoint that we just presented will be going out to all of you. At the very end of it is an email. If you have any questions, if there's anything you would like clarified, if there's anything you were wondering specifically, feel free.
Suggestions of what we can do next.
Feel free to email us, and we will respond to you as soon as we can with as much information as we can willingly give out. But other than that, thank you very much for listening.
Council Contact, if you want to help organize on our side, or if you potentially want one of us to help present to your college, Senate about this issue, if you want someone closer to the issue.
Thank you all.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to quickly plug, because you all have been doing some awesome organizing. The application for registered student organizations to have voting membership of the SUA is still open. So if any of your orgs are interested in having a voting rep in this space to make these decisions and to count for quorum, we still have slots open. So feel free to, I think SOAR sent out the email with the application to every registered student org. But if you don't have it, feel free to reach out to Zachariah and I will send it your way.
You also don't need to be registered student.
Yes.
That's
Oh, we don't need to do sorta.
Right.
Well, you need to be a registered org at one point, but it just is not now.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
I have a few questions. Real quick about, I'm sorry. No. Any resources that you offered us tonight, do any of those need to be closed after the presentation?
Everything should electronically is open.
Thank you. And then lastly, I wanted to check that so this language, in addition to the resolution,
You guys who have these, hold them up, please.
for both students.
This language is within the resolution.
Thank you very much. So I just want to reiterate that if you have a phone number of somebody who's not here, please text them, step out and call them. Thank you. We are, as for my last count, we have 5 people here. All right. Next, we have Howard. Yes. You all have a minute? Everyone ready? I don't know what those intense presentations. You know what? Then just come back. Would you all like a minute?
Hi everyone. My name is James and I'm chapter chair for Calvert's campus. Today we're going to give you our year in review. Basically, Calvert as a student org, part of our contract to stay on campus, it says that we have to give you a presentation about the work that we've done over the past year and about the work we want to do the next year. A big reason why we have that is just so we can stay accountable to the student body that we represent and you guys represent, or y'all represent the student body. If you guys aren't familiar with us, we are, sorry, if y'all aren't familiar with us, we're a SUA registered course, and we work on grassroots campaigns, we work on student issues like protecting the environment, college affordability, civic engagement like registering, helping to register students to vote, and a bunch more. And yeah, we're completely student run and student funded, and we work on ACUC campuses. So, yeah. And so, kind of our org structure is we have volunteers, we have interns, we have people that coordinate our campaigns. We also have like a student board, which is elected representatives at each of our college campuses. You can go to the next slide.
Yes.
Yeah. And so yeah, we have our student board. It's like 35 or 36 students that represent our board across the state, and they vote on things like our budget, our statewide lead campaign, and approves new campaigns that we work on. We also have our statewide executive committee, which is 6 students elected by the board of directors, and we work on projects to drive our statewide priorities. And myself, I've served on the executive committee for 1 year, and next year will be my next year on the executive committee. And one unique thing about us, next slide. So yeah, over this past year, we've involved over 100 volunteers. 50 students have gone through our internship program on campus to train them on how to organize on these issues and really learn how to run a grassroots campaign. And through our work, we've helped educate over 5,000 students, and we've involved over 8,000 students on our email list. Next is we have 19.18% of our student body of undergraduates that are actually currently pledged to CalPERD. So that means that they have voluntarily added a $10 fee to their student tuition to actually fund our work. One of the main things that they help fund is our hired staff. We're kind of unique in the fact that we actually pool our resources together to hire professionals to advocate for us in Sacramento, so we know what bills to lobby on or what specific legislators we should pressure to swing their votes. And they also come onto campus and actually train us, because most college students don't know how to lobby an elected official. And yeah, next up we got our campaigns, and let them talk about 100% renewable energy.
Hi everybody, my name is Emma, and I am the co-coordinator for our 100% renewable energy campaign. And this campaign was our lead campaign for our winter and spring quarters this year. And we ran this campaign with the goal in mind of supporting a particular bill at the state level, which is AB 1418. And if passed, this bill would convert all public school buses to electricity, in turn greatly reducing the amount of carbon emissions released in California. And as we all know, carbon emissions greatly impact the environment and cause climate change. And climate change is something that we all pay and is generally just not good to the public health, the environment, and so forth. And things we did as accomplishments this quarter for this campaign were we helped pass SB 100 at the state level, which is a bill that sets California on the track to become completely converted to renewable electricity by 2045. We supported that immensely. We got that passed, which was monumental. And in support of AB 1418, we wrote letters to assembly members in support of this bill from the student body.
We also collected petitions in support of renewable energy on campus, and we attended a press conference hosted by Assembly Member William Chu, who proposed AB 1418 at the state level. And for the future, we hope to commit this campus to 100% clean renewable energy by 2050. UC Berkeley has actually already done this, so it can be done, and it would be amazing if the UC system could take it one step further and have our campus be the next campus to make this commitment.
Just a quick question about AB 1418.
Yeah.
Is there consideration given to public schools that don't have, are like underfunded due to like property taxes, or I think it's just like it's everyone's mistaken? Like, is there support given to those schools?
Yeah, it's not really like you have to do this or we'll like fine you or whatever. It really is more of setting up infrastructures at like city government levels to actually like help the schools get there, and you know, low income ones definitely get more support from the state level to get up there, because you know I'm sure you're well aware that they're the most impacted by climate change, the most impacted by you know, poor air quality.
All right, how's it going? My name is Greg Benavides. I am a grassroots coordinator with the Save the Bees initiative here with CalPERG. One of our main goals for the year is to acquire bee-friendly certification through the Xerxes Society, which is a nonprofit national organization that works for the conservation of invertebrates with a heavy influence towards pollinators such as butterflies and bee populations. And some of the accomplishments that we had this running as our lead campaign for the fall, and we managed to receive 1,900 petitions in favor of a statewide ban of neonicotinoids, which are a addictive pesticide that's used on agricultural products that have been directly linked to the decline of bee populations across the world. It's currently banned in Europe as well as a couple of states, but unfortunately the powers that be in a large agricultural state like California, it's met with a lot of resistance trying to pass a ban on something like that. However, here on campus we have received an overall ban of neonicotinoids on campus that was implemented, I think, last quarter?
At the end of the spring quarter last year.
And so right now we're trying to form a committee that would receive this bee-friendly certification. We're hoping that it can help inspire other UCs, particularly other agriculturally based UCs such as UC Davis, to also get in on banning or becoming more bee-friendly. That would include planting more native crops as well as using more pesticide-free agricultural systems. Right now, the only other UC that has gone through is also UC Berkeley. So we hope to have this done by next fall, and we hope to convene our committee by next fall through the SUA.
My name is Erin. I volunteer with CalPERG, and specifically plastic-free cities. And so the goal of this campaign is kind of like a really big one. We want to get a statewide ban on polystyrene by like 2020 or 2022, because polystyrene is basically styrofoam, and it never decomposes and it's super harmful to the environment, and we know this. And we also want to pass like a statewide ban on single-use plastics. That's not really a ban. It would be reducing single-use plastics by 75% or finding alternatives for them, which would be great because something that we use for a couple minutes shouldn't be destroying our planet like for several hundred or thousands of years. So far, this has only been a campaign here for the past quarter, but in that time, we've been able to raise over 300 petitions supporting our work on this issue, and we were able to have a beach cleanup, which is really cool. We want to have some more beach cleanups next year, and we want to continue increasing visibility on this issue because there are some bills in the California legislature, SB 54 and AB 1080, which are looking to accomplish these goals, and we really want to gather some grassroots support and get people informed because like climate change and the Great Pacific Garbage Patch are a really big issue right now. It's really like the collective consciousness, and we want to not feel so hopeless and take action on it. And so there's a lot of work that we're hoping to do next year on that.
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm the co-coordinator for the Zero Hunger campaign, which will be starting next fall. And our goal for this campaign is to achieve zero hunger by 2030 on campus. This means achieving food security for all students by limiting food waste and increasing food availability. In the past, we ran a small campaign on Zero Hunger. We collected petitions and held informational tables regarding student hunger. But other than that, we didn't really do too much. So the next fall, we really want to take it a step further. And to achieve our goal of reaching Zero Hunger by 2030, we plan to gather funding to establish new food pantries. We also want to coordinate with the dining halls to help reduce food waste as much as possible.
Hey, I'm back. So one of our biggest focuses for the past year in the fall was the New Voters Project, which is something that Calvert runs every election year. It's one of the biggest youth voter programs in the nation, and basically our goal was to increase voter turnout on campus. We helped register over 300 UCSC students to vote. On the day of the election, we made over 50,000 get-out-the-vote contacts, and we collected over 30 student leader sign-ons in support of legislation that would help institutionalize voter registration on college campuses in California. And yeah, we're hoping, we're going to bring this campaign back in the winter of next year. We want to work on getting UCSC to be the first UC to be certified voter friendly, and essentially what that means is we make it beyond easy on campus to get registered and get informed on how you can vote in the election. And a big part of that would be getting same-day voter registration at all our polling sites on campus. Some of you may have known about in the fall how we only had one same-day voter registration site, and it was so incredibly packed all day. There was a line out the door and down 3 flights of stairs and out another door for the entire day. People were waiting hours and hours and hours just for this.
Where was this?
Sorry?
It was like mid-June.
Hello, I'm Aaron. I volunteer with Calvert, and I will be coordinating the textbook affordability campaign for the fall. The primary goal of our textbook affordability campaign is to make textbooks affordable for students here at UCSC. As I'm sure all of you are aware, they are very expensive at this time. That you did not know that they are 4 times the rate of inflation currently. And furthermore, students are going without meal plans to afford their textbooks, or they are resorting to illegal means by downloading PDFs online that they should not be doing. So, our goal is to set up a grant program that will give professors money to move towards more open source textbooks, which are cheaper for students. This way, professors will not have to worry about earning less money because of these cheaper prices. They'll be earning money to compensate for the cost of publishing and writing their textbooks. And so what we have gathered so far is several petitions from faculty members that said that they would be in support of transitioning into more open source textbooks, and we have gathered a lot of support from students as well for this. And what we plan to do in the future is discuss the grant program with the Office of Budget Planning to, yes.
Just a quick thing, can you define open source textbooks?
Oh yes, okay. So the way that open source textbooks work is that the price is not set by the bookstore themselves or the publisher. It's like a set price for all textbooks, basically.
I feel like
Our recruitment drive, where we try to reach out to as many students as we can who might be interested in either volunteering or interning with us and tackling the issues we do with us. And the kickoff meetings are made to introduce those volunteers and interns to the campaigns that we have that quarter and the mission within the campaigns and the tactics that we're going to use for the campaigns to achieve the goals that we've set. And each quarter, we try to get as many people there as we can, like I said. But this past year, we have had the highest numbers at our kickoff meetings that we've had in over a decade. Fall quarter, we started off with 73 followed by a whopping 85, which is relatively high for the population of the campus when you compare it to other UCs. And spring quarter is always the smaller one because it's the end of the year academically. People have already really found the organizations they're part of, if any. So we did bring it to 35, which is still pretty solid when you consider, again, the size of the campus and retention rate. And that number at the kickoff meeting does correlate to how well we do in our pledge drives, which we will talk about next.
So, pledge drives are some of the most fun time that we have here in Calvert. So the way that these pledge drives work is that obviously we need money to help fund our campaigns and our organization. So the way that we do that is by asking students if they would like to pledge $10 per quarter to our organization to help fund our campaigns. And so we set up events, as you'll see in this picture, in which we'll set up a table, say either Corey or Rachel Clarkson, and we'll have a bunch of volunteers and members of Halford go around and ask students like, hey, are you tired of paying too much for textbooks, or are you in support of 100% renewable energy? And then if they say yes, then we'll talk to them for a bit, say what we do and what we do with the money that they're pledging to us. And that way we get funding for our organization. And this past year we signed up approximately 2.3 thousand dues paying members and educated 6,000 students about our organization and about how they can help support us. And build grassroots support for Safe Bees, 100% big transportation campaigns, and also our other campaigns such as Zero Hunger and Textbook Affordability.
So, Lobby Day is an event that Calvert has every year, and this year it was March 8th, I want to say, it was winter quarter. And a bunch of Calvert students from all over the state, as far as like UC San Diego, came to Sacramento, and we all met up at UC Davis, and we rode to Sacramento on a school bus that had been converted to an electric school bus. So that was really cool, and we arrived for a press conference to support Senator Henry Stern's Green New Deal and AB 1418. And it was really, there was like a press conference. So the press was there, but it was really nice to meet students showing up to support these bills because you are the ones who are affected by climate change, and we were able to show that. And then we got to meet with elected officials and their staff and talk about the issues and talk about the campaigns that we were telling you about. And it was a really great opportunity, like, for us students to be developing that professionalism and interacting with our elected officials and such. And it's a great opportunity for the elected officials to hear what students care about and what action they want to take on these issues.
So our board for the 2019-2020 school year will be James Wilhite as chapter chair. We'll have Emma Meadows Mahoney as vice chair. And our members at large will be Aaron Godwin and Greg Benavides.
And we already talked a little bit about this, but our campaigns looking into the fall, we're going to be leading on plastic-free seas. So that means that every chapter across the state is going to be working on that campaign. But one thing we really wanted to do is over this next year kind of shift our focus. I don't know, a lot of people on campus really just recognize us as an environmental group. And we're a lot more than that, so we want to shift our focus by working on Zero Hunger and textbooks a lot more next year, and kind of putting renewable energy and Save the Bees, I don't want to say on the back burner, but yeah, we're going to focus more on issues that really directly affect students, like the high cost of textbooks and not being able to eat. So yeah, those are our campaign. And so, yeah, one last thing we want to say is if y'all are looking for a job, you're a senior, you can definitely check out that website. The student perks have over, we're at 35 colleges and universities across the country. So yeah, if you're looking for a job involved in student activism, wanting to work with students on college campuses to make change on these sorts of issues, definitely check out the job and apply. And yeah, that's basically it. One more thing. Yeah, and I just wanted to say thank you. We do really want to work with y'all a lot more next year. We are actually even applying to be a SUA affiliate. We, over this year, definitely didn't work with you guys very much, and you know, that was a good bit of our fault, but by applying to be an affiliate, we hope that we can, you know, coordinate with y'all a lot more and tackle these big issues together. So, yeah, I was gonna, if it's okay, pass around a clipboard over there. If you're interested in like just getting in contact with us about any of our campaigns, just put your name, like any contact info, and then like what you're interested in helping out with. Totally optional, but I was gonna pass that around. If that's okay. Any questions or comments?
Yeah. Again, thank you so much, Calvert, for coming to present to the SUA. On behalf of the SUA, again, I'd like to apologize for our lack of attendance today. And I encourage folks to, again, reach out to folks. Also, I look forward to reviewing y'all's application for SUA, and I know that y'all do a lot of the work that student government should be doing on this campus as well. So I think incorporating you particularly in the student government space will do nothing but empower the SUA. So I look forward to have that conversation next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please raise your hand if you're here as a voting
If you're a voting member, if you're here as a voting member.
We don't have it.
What? How many off are we?
2 people off.
How many? So
I can duplicate myself.
Well, I heard rumblings, and I don't know if this even counts because some positions aren't filled. Does that?
I'm counting that.
But that takes away from.
Yes.
Did you count not me?
I did.
Okay.
So we are one person away. Thank you, Elise. We are one person away. Yeah, now, if we can get one more person, then we can talk about the budget. But we can't talk about the budget right now.
If anybody has a phone charger, I can call the order, like the 2 quarter people.
Just use someone else's phone.
I don't remember numbers.
I have a charger for you. You're welcome.
Hey, thank you.
Zach, it's a little late in the year for this, but should we also figure out like which colleges aren't sending anyone? Like, I know Stevenson has all 3 here, and like I see Merrill has people here.
We're keeping track of attendance.
Okay. We should like call out those colleges for like not sending a single person.
We are. I'm going to just it's not
But like that's also on the college government.
exactly.
Okay. So, up next, we have the do I have everyone's attention? Can y'all bring it back real quick? Thank you all. Next we have the presidential address regarding the SUA space. I will give the floor.
I don't know I'm going to be forward because this is, I kind of think I'm going to express my feelings in this space. After we got presentations from the Studs in Solidarity A lot of work being done outside of the SUA, but not a lot of organizing here. And you know, it's one thing if we're not necessarily consistently doing the work. It's another thing if we're not even showing up to our job. I want to have a collective conversation because I don't want it to just be I am talking to y'all as it always is. I want to have an open conversation and talk about a few issues going on. There was one issue that I wanted to bring to light, but I do not feel comfortable bringing it right now, so I will hold it for week 10. But I want to hear from y'all in terms of how you feel like the space is doing. In terms of how the space is doing, when it comes to listening to presentations, when it comes to feeling out the tensions in the room, the toxicity, when it comes to being pressured to do certain things that you don't want to do, or say things that you don't want to say. I've had multiple complaints from SUA members saying that they felt very pressured in certain situations, and so I want to have that open dialogue. But if you don't feel comfortable with doing that here, you can always email me and we can set up. I want to have a conversation just about your thoughts about the SUA right now, your thoughts about attendance, why you feel like it is how it is. I think that in winter quarter, we had a lot of SUA members complaining that they didn't want to come to the SUA meetings because it was too long. And so what I did as president was I moved all of the money to SOFA. We agreed to have all of those funds go to SOFA so that we can have time and during SUA meetings to talk nothing but political organizing about moving forward the progress of our students, about doing issues that are happening in our colleges, to the SUA floor, about emailing Zach to get on the agenda, because in Cal College there's a whole bunch of it's okay to be white flyers, and we want folks from that college and from other colleges to work together to bring a resolution to continue the work that we are supposed to do as we represent our folks. So I kind of want to just understand, mainly I want to have a conversation for all of us to understand each other, understand our intentions, understand where we're at right now and where we feel like we're going. And kind of, I guess, understand, I guess do a little check-in, a status update. And I'm going to encourage y'all to be as open and as, I guess, vulnerable as you can be, as you feel comfortable being. Because the space in general, collectively, will not be better and will not develop and will not progress if folks are too afraid to say something because they're going to get backlash, because they're going to feel like everyone's going to come at them, because they feel like, oh, everyone's voting this one way, so I'm going to vote this up, so I have to vote this one way. Like, don't feel pressured to say anything that is supposed to be beautiful. I want to use as much time that I have this agenda item to just have a collective conversation. So, Zach, why don't you take staff and then yeah, we'll just hear folks. For about 10 minutes.
Okay, well, I have like two things. So first of all, have we kind of talked about people who may be in the space who like aren't technically affiliated with the space, who could maybe fill in a spot, so we could get that one extra person form? Budgets are really important. Like, I'm really worried. I also forced 2 people to come here that don't want to be here probably because they're not actually members of this space, and like I don't want to keep them here if they don't, if there isn't going to be an actual thing that they need to be here for. So I'd love to have this conversation. I think it's a really important conversation. I have things that I want to say about it, but I also want to talk first about the things that we need quorum for, so that we can make sure that we get those things done. We don't keep people who really can't be here, or are graciously giving their time. Yeah, so is there just, yeah.
Well, one question away from going into my last calculation. Yeah, so, again, if we don't talk about the budget tonight, it straight up is going to be like a 3-hour meeting next week. Yeah, so if there's people you can contact, I mean, I'm confident you all that you all have contacted people already, but if there's additional people that you can think of that could come and represent, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much. Yes.
To just touch on what the previous speaker said,
Yeah.
like, can we take people who are currently here to fill in spots if they're affiliated with that college? That's what you were saying?
Yeah.
Like,
No, we can't.
like what defines as someone being able to fill in those spots?
So technically, the technical way of having a proxy is by having that chair or that organization in general email Zach and say, hey, these are the people that are going to be representing us because folks are going to be coming. Or an organization already has members that are registered under the SUA as proxy for our alternates. So if you're not registered as an alternate, if your college hasn't communicated as an alternate, the question becomes how can we prove that you were actually appointed by your college to be here? And so it opens up this also question about like, oh, if random folks come in and say, well, I'm representing this person, how do we distinguish between people who are actually here because organizations are representing them or not? So that's the current
How
issue.
good is like our word?
But like also to like call out what was just said, like if we're trusting that each college government can appoint people to sit here, and we also need to trust them to actually send those people. So if they're not sending those people and there's other people here, then I think that we can override that in my opinion, because like these people have taken the time to be here, and the college governments can't even ensure that their own people are here. Like I said earlier, Maryland and Stevenson have full people here, which means other groups have 0 people here. And so if there's someone here who can fill that space, I don't think it's fair to say, well, the college government should have that role when they can't even send one person. Colby?
So I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with that based on what Ash says. I think if, I don't know, hypothetically, if 9 and 10 didn't send anybody, 9 and 10 should be responsible for sending people. That said, I believe you also mentioned that, you can still vote without quorum, and given, the time that it would take to postpone the budget for next week, and given the importance of, a budget, is it possible to move on without, is it possible to vote on that without quorum? Because I think it's pretty...
we can vote without quorum, my understanding.
Yeah.
Where is that coming from?
Somebody said it, right? You voted on things without quorum?
No. Yeah, ever since the officer vote in the summer, we don't vote quorum.
That makes sense.
I will say though that I have there has people come in the past from spaces, and I know that they're in the college governments or whatever. And I have given them a vote when the other representatives haven't been here. So we do have, if we're going by the Constitution, we do have 1 person that's representing the interests of their college overall, and then 2 people representing the interests of their college governments. I don't know if we want to maybe work with that 1 person from each college at all. They weren't elected. The Constitution says that they weren't elected. Just additional information. I had motion.
Just a question. So, the 2 requirements to be a voting member is to have the chair confirm that that person's stepping in for the other person. And is there a time limit on when you can do that? Because if there's any quarter affiliates, I can just email right now.
Yeah, you can do that.
Alright.
I'm a quarter affiliate.
I can email.
Is anybody a Kresge affiliate? Ad and I's been pretty involved in a lot of SUA things.
I'm Kresge, but I'm not the chair.
Zach, yeah, just to be clear, if people are not affiliated with a college, if the chair hasn't appointed them, or if there's not official kind of officiation, we can't just decide who's voting members and who's not, because then that would make SUA block power in general. So only folks who are confirmed by the chair, by their chair can be voting members. So technically, initially since your chair, technically appoint Ben, who's also a quarter affiliate, to be a voting member. But
Is that something the body would look faithfully upon?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'll send
Thank you. Devon, just to ask.
Well, yeah, I thought I was, were they not already on staff? So I raised my hand and Adam raised his hand.
I thought that was something different. We were talking about the attendance point. I thought that was under the presidential address point.
Yeah, sure. So two things. One's the quorum thing, I guess, more like the bylaws as constitutional thing. I wish we got this in before the constitutional amendment went through. But is there any way to can we fix quorum, make it smaller next year? I personally, we have too many reps in this space to begin with. We do not need to appoint reps in this space. I recommended that months ago. Our folks off the citizen back to call the constitutional amendment had that been put in there, which I understand. We have way too many people in this space. So is there any way to fix quorum for next year in some way? Or is there any way to make that smaller next year? At Stefan and Zach.
Zach, can I respond to that?
Yes, please.
So those are good points. Quorum is super ingrained in the Constitution. It's 2D2, and there's a super dangerous loophole in the current Constitution that I actually feel kind of conflicted even bringing up to the space.
Oh no.
We have to.
And I don't have to anymore, so we're good.
I don't want to pick those guys.
One thing, yeah, I will echo that point, that we needed a constitutional change.
Okay.
Yes, lower quorum. Stefan,
Yes.
I just want to double check with you. Any proceedings here that you have disagreed with?
No.
But we have quorum now.
So I do want to get to the budget. I will say also, I think for a reflection of the space, will it be better if instead of a 20-minute item on the budget, it will be like a Google form and actually ask people to discuss their criticisms and they can actually flesh those out versus kind of just talk about it on the spot for 20 minutes. So I think that would be a lot more effective other things. Even if the docs kind of call it out for all the folks kind of on the space. So if the office of president wanted to administer that the next week, they can probably do so. That's a lot more effective than doing this right now. So we should want to.
What did you say?
There should be a Google form sent out to this space to kind of reflect on the space and the officers and the work we've done versus doing it in this whole thing.
I would really like to go to the budget. Any comments not about the budget? I'd
You
like
want
to
to
hold. Thank you. So I'm going to go, we're going to put the agenda real quick, and then we're going to approve the budget, okay? What was that?
If you got the email from Wish Meeting, then
We're good.
Yeah.
We're good.
Excellent.
Thank you, Miss.
I got can I?
Okay, so projected is the budget. I mean, not the budget, is the agenda. So this is today's agenda. Any motions regarding today's agenda? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, can I edit one thing? Yeah. The edit based off of a previous comment is I'm going to be taking this off.
What is that?
Wait, what? Excellent. That was just the presidential address that I have heard, and then you can all vote to not confirm this right now, but I have just heard that this would be better administered over a Google form, so that's why I'm taking that off.
I have a question.
Is that a disagreement?
Yes, because the service said supplement housing bylaws.
Where do you see supplement housing?
If you do Control Z, Command Z,
Control
whatever.
Z?
Yeah, see proposed bylaws on the Department of State.
That should not be submitted to the Google form.
Yeah. That should be something that should be discussed.
Yeah.
I think there's a disconnect between what the agenda item was presented and what the supplement is provided. I hear you, and based off of what we have discussed and voted on in this case, I don't think we can send that out via Google form. The Google form was for discussing how to improvements on SUA, issues of SUA.
That's good.
Love that.
Perfect.
Delete that shit, bro.
I was just making sure that the bylaw wasn't going to go into place without proper discussion.
Okay. So, I will note that we are talking about the budget for 40 minutes on this agenda. And that this is something that we didn't get to last week. This thing. I don't know if anyone has any feelings on that. Yeah. Second. So I have a motion by Adam to approve the agenda, second by Eric. Are there any objections? Cool. Seeing none, the agenda is passed. And we'll be moving into the budget.
Zach,
Yes.
where did I go and do we have form?
You don't lose form when someone steps up to go to the bathroom.
Okay. Is that what, well, I don't know, I mean.
Let's assume that's just what he did. I have stepped out with 3 minutes. So we can take it to
Do
the
we need to
back.
discuss the budget now?
Just a vote.
Just voting on the budget right off the top?
Well, we can discuss, but if
No, I'm
we
saying
need
we need him because if he's representing as the.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right?
It's not fine.
Why are you?
It's not every day. No faces, your faces go crazy. Funny faces.
So, do either of you object to propose to adopting the agenda?
What was the agenda?
It was the same agenda, just without the presidential address.
Oh, well, yeah, maybe.
Wait,
Yeah.
and there was, what was that? Yes.
Well, I think
He's good, he's good.
We're going to be discussing budget now, so if you need to use the bathroom, please go now so that we have everyone here when we're voting.
Yes. Okay, great.
You're not making it.
you have that like 1 minute.
We can always do that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Can I? You go to that.
Yes. Yes. Would you like to go ahead and say that comment now?
Sure.
Stat.
Sure. There's a lot of things that I'm sure we're all gonna like try and change, which is great. But I want to like sort of set up of like, because last time I like tried to motion and then it was like not approved, which is totally fine. But are we discussing everything and then motioning? Are we just motioning immediately? Or like how is the process going to work so we can all be on the same page of like not like, because there's a bunch of suggestions. So how do we get them all working in?
So my bias is because this is when we're approving the agenda. For me, in my thinking, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're different thinking, it's easiest if we were to just go through. And if you want to see a change, you motion to make that change. And then at the end, we'll motion to approve it with all the changes that we just made.
Yeah.
Great.
Can I make a motion?
Usually you need to deserve, you know what, yeah.
I'm going to motion for the same thing I motioned last week, which was to move 500 from SUA retreat, 500 from SUA supplies, and add that 1,000 to the elections. I can go over the reasons again for y'all who were or not. I don't care either way.
You said 500 from, I'm sorry.
The same thing I motioned last week.
Can you repeat it for me so I can write it on the board?
Yes.
Thank you.
500 from SUA retreat, because right now that's at almost 3,000. 500 from SUA office supplies, because that was quadrupled, and there was no clear definition of why. And moving into elections programming, because right now 3,000, given what the elections commission currently is not enough. So moving it to 4,000, increasing that. Hear me out.
Okay, yeah.
Well, two things. So I do have my budgetary thing. I was going to ask, can you designate someone to do the chalkboard while
Yes.
you probably
Yes.
preparing with
Yes.
the system?
Yes. That's a great idea.
So,
Would you like to do chalkboard? Thank you very much.
There need to be a second to this
We
motion.
need a second. I will say that the reason given for the office supplies was that they were used by more people than just in SU. Just to restate that.
But to comment on that, it was said that the Christian was, which is a separate line.
Okay. Okay. So I have a motion by Adam. Is that a second? And a second by David to move $500K. $500 from SUA retreat line item and SUA office supplies to increase the election token to $4,000. For the reference, SUA retreat, thank you very much. There's currently around 3,000 SUA office supplies. I believe I do not.
It's at 2,000.
Is that 2,000?
It was at 500 this year. Moved to
Got you.
So I'm moving it back to 1,000.
Are there any objections to this change? Yes. Do you care to state your objection?
Yeah, so, whatever happens with the retreat is honestly up to y'all for next year. But when it comes to the office supplies, like I said earlier, we need that money for folks who are going to be utilizing SUA office supplies. Like I said, my office has had to contribute funds for my own personal line to pay for certain things in the office that are available to all students. If we're going to invest in being open, accessible, and unionizing our students in the SUA office, I think we need to at least, in the bare minimum, be able to provide SUA office supplies. This year, we've used about $2,100 of SUA supplies. I've got donations from the student's office, but I think that it would be really great if we could at least have, that baseline for SUA office supplies. So I would recommend, at least number one, I recommend separating those two. If you want to go on the retreat, that's cool. But I would separate those so we're not doing them together, not forcing people to vote on certain parts of it. And then number two, I would recommend to not take down office supplies. But at the end of the day, if you want to, that's cool. Don't want to make this whole conversation, just my recommendation. Right?
I'll split it up.
Okay. Sorry. Quick note. Devon and Shania, you're the other people whose hands I had up. Do you both want to be put onto this new stack, or would you? Because the new stack has to be about this motion. Do you have something else to discuss, or is it something related to this?
Not something else, but also something related to this. Just like
Okay. Sounds good.
For clarity, can I split them?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes. Did you have your first on stack? Yeah. So you can split them.
Yeah. Just to make
that's a motion. That's a motion to divide the motion.
Can I just amend my own motion?
I'm sorry, if you were related to
Alright, so I have a motion to divide this motion, second by David. Are there any objections to dividing this motion? Which just means we're making it two different things. Cool. So this is now two different things. Next, I have Regina, I believe. Did I have you, Regina? Did I have you? Did I have you, Alex?
Yeah, you have me.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that, I also used my line item for the office supplies, and I didn't see it as too much of an issue. It comes with being an officer, you have to do every now and then, especially if you're on discretionary, so it should be fine. Just you have to be more careful. Things we do pay for is obviously the supplies in the office, but things like big poster papers for people who want to go on strike and they want to make big posters of something like they come in for pieces of paper and things like that. But again, I think we'd be able to be fine with the budget at 2,500 now, or what is it?
It was 500, now it's 2,000. And the motion is to get it back to 1,000.
This is hyperlinked on the agenda. It may be easier to
It was 500 this year. The current budget has it moving to 2,000.
Okay.
And so if we took 500, it would go to 1,500.
Okay. Chase?
I was just going to ask, what are the current office supplies being, what are the expenses, specific items?
Either do you care to respond? Or an opposite can respond?
I mean, I can go on the SUA.
No, just off the top, what the previous speaker said.
I would need to go with him.
Okay, then never mind.
So, yes, I'll be taking more comments. I'm putting in the bottom stack because you already talked about this stuff. Yeah.
I'm just going to say that everybody that went to the retreat, that was in Grandstand, I really here to talk about this. So, can I amend that 500 from SUA retreat to be 1,000 so that we can just fill up that?
Yeah.
So then, motion to amend?
So
I declined the amendment. Well, do I have to
No, it doesn't go through you. So okay. So I'm just gonna try to pull up.
So that's from the SUA.
Potentially we haven't passed it yet, but if you want to just write it out.
So I can erase the problems like that.
No. Yes.
No. It's a new thing under the thing, right?
Yes, because I'm just saying, can we have the visual? Oh, Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. I'm just trying to pull up where we have the table sheet. Here we go. So this is what we currently have in the retreat. That's green on green. That's a little difficult. That's 2,780. I have a motion by Eric to instead. This is at this point this is a primary amendment to do. So I'm just gonna because this is not gonna happen multiple times in this conversation. Just as a quick review. We have a main motion, right? And then we have a primary amendment, just a change to the main motion. And then we even have a secondary amendment. How that works, and this would be less, this would be less if it was just a primary amendment, for example. But we first adopt the secondary amendment, that would become the primary amendment. We adopt the primary amendment, that would become the main motion, we adopt the main motion. Currently, we only have a primary amendment. Everyone clear? Questions? Cool. Cool. So this is a primary amendment. Is there a second to that to instead take 1,000? And then is that 1,000? Is that 1,000 all going to elections program?
Yes.
Okay. So to take 1,000 to elections program?
Yes, and
Second. All right. I have a motion by Eric and a second by Anna to move 1,000 from SUA retreat to SUA elections program. Are there any objections? Seeing none, that passes. Okay, so that's our primary amendment. The sake of Robert's rules is that we would just, yeah, so now we're adopting this. I messed up earlier, that's on me. Okay, so, what's going on now? No, that's 1,000. Yeah, that's 1,000. Okay, so, are there any objections? Yes. Do I ask for a new motion to be made, or do I just ask for objections?
So there are two motions on the table right now. One to take 500 from office supplies, and one to take 1,000 from the retreat. So you can debate on both of those motions if you want, or just ask for the question to be called.
So there was no objections. So do I move directly into the next round of adopting the main motion, or do we continue debate?
If there's no objections, unless there's people on the stack, because it is debatable.
Oh, so more people. Got you. Thank you very much.
No problem.
I do have more people on stack. Shania, you're next on stack.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to know, like, if there was, like, a list of, like, what the money for office supplies, like, the 2,100.
I think that's being looked into.
Oh, I should stop.
So it's just stationary items?
Yeah.
That you won't have to replenish for next year besides paper?
Yes. I mean, Bania has more of an idea of what else we need, but I don't think that we need a whole lot because we did restock a lot. But if a lot of people are going to be coming in, then possibly. I know that the rings of paper are pretty big, like, you know, I'm talking about the post papers. They're like pretty expensive, which is like 50 a pop. And I don't know if like people want to get that. I mean, that's also the assembly's decision. And if we do get that, they can help with posters for future events, or strikes, anything of those sorts.
Do you go with response?
Yeah, point of information. Balnia recommended that I increase this budget supply, the office supplies to 3,000 based off of how much we spend and based off of the things that are needed within the SUA. Like I said, I will get that list. So I'm just saying from the SUA advisor perspective, she asked for 3,000 and I said, we don't have that much here, let's just go to 2,000. So this is less than what she's requested for the
SUA.
So there are two motions on the floor, and one of them is moving $1,000 from the SUA retreat. If you look at the line item or whatever for the first retreat, it's 2,700, 800. For moving 1,000 into elections programming, that will put that down to the same amount as the other retreat, which makes sense. And I don't see why there needs to be both $1,000 removed and $500 removed. And we're hearing from the officers and our advisors that 500, like, that we need more money allocated for office supplies, so it doesn't make sense to take 500 away from something that we need money for. So I reserve my right to make a motion.
You say that at the beginning, but we don't need to do that. You're good. Good job.
Apologies, guys. So I want a motion to vote upon these. and urge the body to vote for moving the 1,000 from SUA retreat and rejecting the 500 from self-policy.
Alright, so this is a call to question, it means a vote to vote. It requires a 2/3 majority vote. So all those in favor of voting on this now, and if it's any consolation, I have 3 people on side. 4 people, sorry. Alright, 22 in favor, all those opposed. Alright, so that passes. So now we're voting on 2 separate motions. The motion to move 500 from office supplies, which currently has 2,000, into elections programming, which currently has 3,000. All those in favor of this motion? The first one, the 500. All those 0 in favor, all those opposed? I count 19 opposed, so that one does not pass. All those in favor of moving 1,000 from the SUA retreat, which currently has this amount, 2,780, into election programming, which has 3,000, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. That's 20 in favor, all those opposed? Seeing none opposed, that passes. I would do anything else this time. Can you please change that to 3,780? And
So we're moving the fall 2019 SUA retreat to 1,000.
1,000. Thank you. That's a big difference.
We're going to move the elections programming
to 4,000.
to 4,000.
Thank you. All right. Going back to previous stat. Devon.
Great. So yet again, UCSA dues were increased from $24,607.80 to $28,820. I have multiple motions for this office, by the way. Only 2 more. 3.
I'm just trying to find it. That's the second ballot. Winter sofa has this. Okay, so UCSA dues currently have about 24,000 in them. We need to increase that because the dues increased. According to a previous speaker, we need to increase it by 4,215 and 20 cents, or according to previous speaker, and the motion made by Devon, seconded by Bella, is to move $4,215.20 out of Winter Sofa, which currently has 36,000 into it, into UCSA dues. Is there any objection? Is that an objection?
Can I make a friendly amendment? I don't know if I'll do that here. I just think it should come from spring knowledge. But like money-wise, I agree with it.
Spring? Okay, so and then Bella, are you chill with that too?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's better because more orders come in the winter for their spring events.
So the motion is to take $4,215.20 out of spring sofa, which currently has about $24,000. Are there any objections?
Not an objection, but just a point of information, just so we all remember. All of our programming, every single bit of our programming is going to be done through SOFA, which means no funding is going to be done through the SUA. Organizations usually ask in total about $95,000 from the SUA. Sorry, that was the line. $85,000 from the SUA in general. So just remember, I do think that we do need to pay these UCSA dues. Just remember that every time we touch the SOFA moving forward, like we're taking away money literally specifically allocated for organizations. Just so
Is that an objection? If there's no objection, it passes. I'm seeing no objections. Is that an objection?
Wait.
Are you objecting to moving about $4,000 out of spring sofa into UCSA dues?
Yes.
Okay. Do you care to state your objection?
Is there a reason why it needs to come out of SOFA?
Is there any other?
Do you care to respond?
Like, is there? Yeah. I mean,
So
I would like a different place, I guess, is my point.
So here's the thing, this current year SOFA, it's 18,000 for fall, 26 for winter, and spring was 15,000. And we're literally increasing all of those nearly by double or, however much for this upcoming year. And so I'm trying to act as if that's still generic programming where we usually rearrange funding from. I don't know where else we would recommend the 4,000 to come from, but SOFA seems the most feasible place to do so since we're just increasing that this past 2 weeks. So this is some addition we had all year. This just happened 2 weeks ago for SOFA. So I think it's probably the most appropriate place to take it out of. I don't know where else to take it out of. Unless you have any recommendations.
I'm looking at it.
Okay, so one thing I will say, just real quick, so people can access the meeting. This visibility is absolutely terrible. Just because of the projector. Can anybody not access this? Does anybody not have a laptop to access this on? I didn't have anybody on staff to discuss this, check to be on staff. Yes.
Go ahead. Less of like a comment, but like, how much, I haven't been here all quarter, but like, how much have people actually come in to SUA for funding this quarter? Because I went to the first SOFA meeting, there weren't that many requests, and so, I mean, that's why.
How many of how much we've spent?
Either, both.
So we've spent all this money, so oh wait, all of this money allocated this year, no case coming to SUA, ask for money this quarter, because at the beginning of the quarter, we moved all of the programming zones to this fiscal. I think in total, the total amount of groups is going to be somewhere around 12.
I don't know.
This spring.
That was unique this year, by the way, because last year there was more folks that applied to SUA funding. I think one of the reasons why we saw a decrease of requests this spring is because probably has to do something with folks just not doing there was nothing because of the COVID. So, but we usually, I mean, I can get you an average. I did the calculation last summer of how much we spent allocated within SOFA. But again, the goal is to just move all money from SUA to SOFA. So I would recommend. I would recommend keeping those numbers. It looks like it jumped a lot, but really all it did was move some of the funds that was in general programming that we were going to spend on organizations anyways to SOFA. So everyone just be cautious that every single time we touch SOFA, that's specifically towards organizations. There are other line items, by the way, which I'm not talking SOFA.
All right.
Where are we and how can we go ahead?
Currently we're in debate about this. This is the motion that was made. There was an objection.
Okay, well, I'll also still point out like not touching it because it is programming. In previous years, if we have to ask them to a line item, we'll take it from generic programming. Like that was the purpose to rearrange things. Yes, we have to give money to orgs, like you agree. There's also certain things like dues to the statewide organizations have to pay. That's also something we have to pay as well. Anyways, yeah, I'm sorry, you call me. Excuse me.
Yeah, you understand.
Oh, okay. So I have, let's see, hold on. Let me just make sure this is right. I have like two potential. So I think that you mentioned taking it from general programming, which I think makes more sense than taking it from SOFA from my perspective, because like I said, or like a previous speaker said, we're trying to move out of funding things in SUA, and so the point, in order to be able to do that, we have to give SOFA more money, and then being like, oh, well, if SOFA has more money, we can just take from that, like, kind of defeats the purpose. I also really want to emphasize funding orgs the money that they need, and if we have extra money, that's fine with me. We can use that at other times, but it's more important to me to have that money available to them than, it is to have like general programming money. And then if that doesn't work, I know that, can somebody just remind me how much it is again?
About $4,000.
$4,000.
It's 4,200.
Okay. There's another thing there. I know that there were issues with the Student of Color Conference being like having issues with like us not wanting to send representatives or folks there, and we still do have money in that line item. I don't know if that's something that people want to look at in terms of like, do we want to preemptively say we are not going to have money sitting in that line item unless we decide we want to go in the future, and then we can put money back in that line item, or designate money from other sources to send people. But right now it doesn't really make sense to say like.
Where do you see the Student Fund conference? Because I don't see it on this.
313.
Under Congress and dues.
Thank you, folks, for helping. Because we decreased it last year 4,000, and this year it continues to be $4,000, despite the fact that we decided not to go again. And if that's a similar amount of money. Once again, this doesn't mean that we couldn't go in the future. It just means that like we would be designating different money later on if we decided to go. I want to emphasize that I don't want to like take money from students of color. But like if that's a conference that we just like aren't going to, it might be a place.
I was just gonna say I agree with Emma that we should zero out our programming minimum. I forgot that we put money in there. Not sure why it's in there. It's really not so if that was our plan. But yeah, we should probably just put that in, zero it out, and it's confusing for folks to see that. And then for stock, I'm not really sure if in the game has more to say about anything.
We didn't go this year because I didn't want to go. I thought it was a waste of time. But I mean, we did move like that funding because that was going to go to an adopting conference, and that turned out to be a waste of time too. So then, so that money was already moved to. I think we decided on programming, but yeah, I mean, it should go to SOFA. But I mean, we should continue it. I think that there's no reason to not go next year. I just thought that it would be good to have an upper year, and yeah. Yeah, we did it too. Well, they went, that's last year is when it happened, all the show. And then this year. Aaron, it's up to the discretion of the next
I think that it's important to remember that it doesn't matter whether an organization is funded all the money in the world if students can't pay tuition and get in the door and access these amazing student organizations. And UCSA is the most effective voice that we have at making sure that the state properly funds us and so that we can avoid future tuition. So I would respectfully argue that it doesn't matter whether we put our entire budget into programming if we don't continue to commit ourselves to fighting tuition costs. And having gone to the Student Loving Conference, I think that it's apparent that UCSA has lots of problems. But that being said, if you can get 150 students in lawmakers' offices in one weekend, then that's a hell of a lot more effective than anything that I've seen in any other venue. So that being said, I respectfully very much urge us to adopt the funding that the External Vice President proposed.
Just a reminder that anybody can call the question.
I reserve my right to make the motion. Before, I just want to point out that this quarter we've sort of tested the whole like people not go to SUA but like go to SOFA thing. And you, as a previous speaker said, we used all that money, but now we're increasing that money even though we've already tested it. So we don't really need to increase it that much if that was what we funded this year. But still, I'm going to call it.
Okay, I have 5 people left on staff. I have a motion for the question. Is there a second? Second, a motion by Ab and a second by David for the question. Are there any objections to the question?
It's not debatable.
It's not debatable. We still work by consensus. The objection is the process of voting. Is that an objection?
Yeah.
Cool. Do you want to state it or are you good?
Actually, first, can I say that what are we going to be voting on?
We're voting on moving 4,000 from Spring SOFA to UCSA dues.
Okay, I'm objecting.
So we're not voting on that? We're
No,
voting on voting.
I'm objecting to Colin's question.
Alright, all those in favor of Colin's question? Did you want to state the objection? I didn't give you the opportunity.
Yeah, I just feel like if there's more people that have things to say about potential alternatives or reasons why they may not agree with this, that it doesn't make sense to shut them up by just going into a vote.
On that one, so that's a thing.
How much is that? What's the exact number?
That's $4,215.20. Thank you for making those changes. I do want to quickly, I see you. I do want to quickly show this on the board. These are stuff that was submitted to Raphael. These, we can't go through and be like voting on these because they don't have places that they're drawing from. If anybody agrees with any of these and finds a place to draw from, yeah, that's a motion you can make. Dave?
So yeah, I have two more. We're hopefully do these quickly. So for board meeting travel, I would like to have that increase from 5,500 to 6,000. Travel is just really expensive right now between hotels and just all the vans as well. It's very expensive to travel across the state. So I would like to increase that from 5,500 to 6,000. So my recommendation is to move 500 from where were we going? From SUA programming, 500 from SUA programming to SUA EVP travel.
Board meeting travel, that's 5,500 and, okay, so move, alright, and it's that, out of that 3,600 number that you want to take? Okay, so the motion is to take 500, is there a second to that? Alright, I have a motion by Devon and a second by Regina, motion by Devon and a second by Regina to take 500 out of SUA engineering programming and move that into board meeting travel. Board meeting travel currently has 5,500 and SUA programming currently has 3,600. Are there any objections? Yes.
I guess my objection is that that money, that 3,600, I initially moved because I had folks say that they didn't feel comfortable with funding the Director of Student Housing Protections, which we have yet to talk about until we discuss that. So I moved that in programming for now. So I do not think that we should touch it because we still ultimately have to pay someone to do the work that we secured. The $450,000 that we secured, we have to need someone to do that work ultimately. So unless somebody is going to propose to have somebody like maybe take an intern from the office of the president and have that person be in charge of doing that work and have that 3,600 substituted, I don't recommend touching the funds that are going to be used to pay the folks that are going to be doing the work next year.
Okay. I see all of you. Did you have any? So just a yes or no, did you want to get on staff?
I was pointing at Shania actually.
Okay. Shania, you were first on staff? Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So previously you mentioned the Director of Housing title, but however, there is the Labor Commissioner that was just voted into the bylaws 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. And that was awarded 3,600. It's not reflected on there. So
It's on the Labor Commissioner.
Did I not say it?
Yeah, it's underneath.
Okay, yeah. So then, speaking from the eye, the person who's the Labor Commissioner should be the one working on the Student Housing Appropriations Committee, doing that work as well, because they're being paid to do similar work. It's conjunctional. So I'm all for moving the 500 from programming to travel.
Okay. I do want to say each time we have a new motion, we open up a new line of debate. I start a new staff. Please raise your hand if I see you. If you were previously on staff, I didn't end up calling you on you and you want to talk again. I see.
I guess I'm just confused why we're allocating money for something that hasn't been approved yet in the hopes that it will be approved. Because like there are a lot of issues going on with like all that stuff right now. So I feel like we should get it approved before we just like allocate money for it. And I understand that it's important I don't know if we're even talking about it next week, so if it's not talked about next week, we can't just like hope that it passes at some point in the distant future.
Bella?
Yeah, I just see unfair is like the labor commissioner rule is so hard to pass, and the fact is that people work hard on trying to make this rule in the bylaw, and they ended up having to make all that work and get that approved first before getting any funding for that role. So I think it's important that that student housing protections role first has the bylaws passed and has all of the information necessary for that role before getting any money allocated to it. And then we have in a different line item, I think that's just not transparent. So can I motion to call the question then?
Yeah. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on staff. I have a motion to call the questions, 5 to 2 minutes majority, vote to vote. All in favor of this is the current motion on the table. All in favor of yes.
Sorry, you asked for a second last time and any objections. Lauren has something.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. No, I was even supposed to. Okay, yeah.
Alright, is there a second? I'm getting to that. But okay. I appreciate it.
Yeah, gotcha.
I have a motion by Bella to call the question. Any second? Second by David. Any objections? Objection by Aaron to clear city objection.
So I was just kind of confused on what you said about another position that could be combined with the other position, and because I'm kind of confused on that, I wanted to ask a question about that. So if we go on this, I can't ask the question. So I feel like that would be taking $500 out of something that we are paying somebody for, and then the moment that this bylaw gets passed, we don't have the money to pay somebody.
So this is not debatable. All those in favor of the question? I have 5 in favor of calling the question, 6 in favor of calling the question. All those opposed? Woo! Is that a no? Yes. What am I thinking? Yes. Okay, not calling the question. I did it. You could have gone away. Can I say step?
Oh, I'm on staff?
Yeah. 10 plus 6.
Wait, is it me?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to provide a point of reference for folks. If these bylaws, the slightly discussed bylaws regarding the Director of Student Housing Protections, I think it was, aren't introduced today, there is no technical way for them to be introduced by the end of this year. Which means that there would be no reason to have that funding in any sort of line item, because normally we can talk about like suspending the bylaws, but the bylaw amendment process is in the Constitution and we can't suspend that, and that requires the week holdover between a bylaw being introduced and then a bylaw being approved. So since that bylaw isn't being introduced to the SUA today, there is no way possible to allocate that $3,600 by consent of the SUA. So then it would be up to the SUA to basically determine what they want to do with that $3,600 in accordance with what has already been approved, if that makes sense.
Right. Next item. Emma?
Yeah, sorry. Oh, am I on
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, can I just get a question? What are you combining with what to have this position out? Yeah, can you just say that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, we, SUA voted to approve the labor commissioner bylaw, which is a person elected through BSU who works with SUA and the EVP office, the campus of all those people in advocating for labor protections, housing protections. Pretty much they're getting paid to be like a strike organizer, to put in the work in labor justice and fighting inequalities and such forth. The student housing director titled person will be doing, essentially, to my understanding, my personal understanding, is doing the exact same work. So you're paying 2 separate people to do the same amount of work. So from my personal understanding and preference, it doesn't make sense to do that. when the bylaws have already been approved, the money's already allocated, and it's like confirmed that there's going to be a labor commissioner, and they can just work on the student housing protections. Like, it's all the same line of work, essentially.
Motion.
Aye. So a few things. Number one, unfortunately, the labor commissioner cannot do the work that's required by this job. I don't even think officers or interns get paid enough. The labor commissioner, I don't even agree that the labor commissioner gets paid enough for the job because what the bylaws already state, they have to do a lot of work. The position which we never got to review because we never got to the bylaws last week actually states the entirety of the work that they need to do. One of the major things that this position needs to do is data collection. That's to ensure that the SUA can institutionalize funding every single year for resources for students. That requires a lot of work, a lot of connecting and working with admin, with UCOP, with UCC administration. That means setting up systems to collect the actual surveys. That means doing report backs to the SUA, doing report backs to other constituents of the UCC campus. So ultimately, whether, I hear y'all when y'all say that, that we don't want to approve anything when it's not presented, and that's my hope was to at least present that to y'all so that y'all at least have the original understanding of what's going on with that position. Like I said again, y'all can take the money, but ultimately that money is going to have to come from somewhere. And if y'all want to opt in to have one of the president's interns encompass that funding, then that's necessary. But based off what we talked about in terms of the bylaw presentation, I think here's what probably most likely is going to have to happen. Did you send me that?
Yes.
Okay. So if that is 100% correct, the bylaws should be on the agenda today unless someone motioned to take it off. And the reason why the bylaws was on the agenda was because I was going to talk to y'all about the ideas of it, and I wanted to be able to have 1 week so that we can officially, technically according to the Constitution, have a week to approve. I didn't get to meet with the Big Five orgs because one org basically got back to me, but we haven't scheduled a meeting, and the other 4 orgs did not respond. So I was going to wait for this week to talk with the Big Five orgs again, reschedule a time to talk about if they're interested in being a part of the committee, and then come to y'all on Tuesday and said they are interested or they're not interested, and then assess the bylaws like that. But currently how the bylaws are set up is basically it says that SUA in the fall quarter with agreements from all the SUA constituents, with agreements from the 5 big orgs and other constituents of the SUA, fall quarter will decide the committee members. My job is I don't care necessarily about this, like the specifics of the committee members. I just need this process to be presented and approved next week. Presented today and approved next week. So just letting y'all know right now, most likely I'm going to motion to add about literally 2.5 minutes to the agenda to be able to tell y'all exactly at least what I'm trying to do, so that we have some kind of basis that we're working off of. But since we need a week, there's so many folks that are opposed to it, but just let me show you what you're opposed to, so that we can at least have a basis of understanding of what's going on. Yeah.
David, you're next.
Now?
Now?
Yes. First thing, I believe that if the president introduces an amendment, a bylaw amendment today, even if it is completely and utterly incomplete, that they can amend that between now and then, and that will give them time to update something more. I would also have a question, that's that we're getting with. Wasn't that the case?
So the constitutional language is when the premise must be given to the assembly for identification of the bylaws.
But we can amend.
Yeah, next week.
And then my second thing was, we're getting like $250,000 from UCOP. Can't we use some of that money to fund this position? We're getting about $250,000 from UCOP, right? Can't we use some of that money to fund this position?
So one of the reasons why I didn't want to touch the money that secured from UCOP was because that SUA money cannot go to students for scholarships, for eviction issues, for anything. So I wanted to maximize the amount of money we have, specifically for students who are being evicted. We could take the money out of that, but we have to schedule that out for about 2 years, because that would require 2 positions for 2 years. So we could take it out, but I do not recommend touching the money that we've secured to help students who are about to graduate.
I would just urge the body to consider doing that. I hear the concerns have been raised, but I think that our budget is hurt a lot more by the loss of 3,600 or whatever, 77,000 something. Is hurt a lot more by that loss, as seen by how hard it has been to fund the various things we want to fund. I think comparatively, drawing that money from the other pool would be worth considering.
Seema? Motion to call the question. I have a motion to call the question. All those in, a motion to call the question made by Seema, seconded by Bella. Are there any objections to call the question on this? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on staff. Is that an objection to call the question?
What is called a question?
It means we're stopping discussion. We're going directly to a vote.
And I don't have my glasses on.
So, moving $100 from SUA program, which currently has $3,600 CBP travel. This $3,600 is supposed to be allocated to the Director of Student Housing Appropriations.
Yes. So, yeah, the director position should not be in the budget.
It's not.
It's not?
Yeah, it's not.
Are there any objections?
We're voting on that motion.
Yeah.
We're voting to vote on this motion.
I misunderstood the question. All right, seeing no objections, we call the question. All those in favor of moving 500 plus your programming to board meeting? Yeah, board meeting travel. I have 18 in favor, all those opposed? Seeing none opposed, the motion passes. Can you make these changes? Thank you. Shania, I have you next. There's something you wanted to bring up.
I wasn't.
I didn't think you
Oh, okay,
yeah. Do you remember what that was? That's on, I mean, it's been a while.
Oh, I do remember. Okay, yeah, just so the budget is accurate for this year, not necessarily next year. Since we did zero out SOC, SOC, whatever, and 2,000 went back to generic programming, and then another 2,000 was split into 2 programs. Can the budget reflect that? That was on mine.
Oh, the budget?
Mm-hmm.
So you said.
So since
you
there's no
have a SOC.
Yeah, so this is from this year, from the 18-19 fiscal year. So no one went to SOC, and then Enrique.
You mean how the budget reflects
Just
what
reflect
happened
that.
this year and
Yeah.
not projections for next year?
Yes.
Is that something you can take care of, Aya?
What?
How the budget reflect that no one went to SOC this year, so zero that out. Money went into general programming, and then 2 programs that Enrique put on. That happened like middle of the grade.
Yes, we can reflect that. I will work with the cells and see. You said move.
So for this year's budget, it has 4,000 allocated for SOC. We decided not to go to SOC, so that should be 0. 2,000 went back into general programming, and then the remaining 2,000 was split between 2 programs that Enrique put on, or 3 programs.
Just subject to noting that on the budget would be good. Thank you so much, Aya.
Personal privilege.
Yeah.
We are like kind of a little bit slow here, and I'd like to try and move it along as fast as possible. We're getting close. We're at 10:30. Sweet 9. Okay. Yeah.
Devon.
Yeah, so lastly, I was not done. So, yeah, the EP office also has student lobbying conference, which in my opinion is the most important and effective conference in the past 2 years when it comes to student advocacy and agency. However, traveling for that has been a horror for the past 2.5 years because we usually have to leave like 5 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and then shit. And then we're up until, because the conference starts usually that day of, so we're up from like 5 to 12. And it's one of those things where it's just unhealthy for students, we're supposed to be lobbying for all of y'all on y'all behalf, to be tired as hell. So we've done this for 3 years now, it's tiresome. So I would like to increase SLT's budget just by a little bit, just so we can actually have an extra hotel going, because for essentially that Friday beforehand. So I'd like to make a motion to, okay, where are we doing this? Motion to move 750 from
We
2.
lost point.
Are you fucking kidding me?
She's in the bathroom. She's in the bathroom. Okay, go ahead, make your motion.
Okay.
She's in the bathroom, she's not here. She's not physically here, we don't physically have to.
Oh my God.
No, we're not doing it as 3 officers.
You know what, Devon, make your motion. I will just be stating the motion which you want to.
Thank you so much, Zach. I appreciate
Are we okay with that? I'm just gonna restate the motion.
Okay.
You can't do anything with it, to be clear. You can take it.
Okay,
you can't
well,
do
I
anything.
couldn't hear it.
We're actually gonna
Wait.
Wait,
Yeah.
did we lose Enrique?
We did.
Oh.
We did. But form is only 21.
Awesome.
Great, cool.
If I could please finish. Oh my gosh, you're gonna argue with something, argue where's gonna come from. 750 from student organizing travel to SLC.
So, student organizing travel currently has 8,000.
No. From SUA program. Thank you. I appreciate all of that.
SUA programming currently has 3,100.
Yes.
And SLC currently has
8,500, so it'll be
8,500.
9,000.
Okay. Is there a second? I have a motion by Devon, a second by Regina to move 750 from SUA programming to student lobby conference. Are there any objections? Yes.
Again, I'm interested to see where y'all are going to plan to pool the money to pay for the people who are going to be doing the work, for the money that we secured this year. I feel like there's a lot of future, we'll get to it when we get to it. If we do not have enough, then it's going to be an issue. To be clear, I am not objecting.
Wait. No one
As a point of information.
I would just like to say, if we're going to.
I'm going to interrupt you because objections aren't supposed to be made.
Okay, that's fine.
Do you have an objection?
I do have an objection.
Okay.
I don't like the idea of pursuing a labor commission because it seems like it is very.
Can you speak up a little bit?
It is very. I'm not the labor commission. It's the housing thing because we do need data on all this stuff to make important decisions. And someone did say we could combine it with the labor commission. We're not going to be paying them enough to do all this extra work.
Okay, we're now moving into debate. Actually, we are out of time on this. So, yes, Regina?
Motion to extend my time.
I have motion to extend time by 10 minutes made by Regina, second by Devon. Is that objection?
No.
Seeing no objections? Bella?
Yeah, we'll find money for it. I'm just saying, because literally the SUA food pantry is $21,000 in its line item, and personally, the student life office has taken one of its own interns and made it SUA food pantry manager instead of having to pay off through the program thing. So I just don't think that it's reasonable to pull it from programming or any other parts of the budget that can be given and allocated to things that have been allocated money for, like the student lobbying conference is definitely going to happen. That's something that is for sure going to happen. We don't know if that labor commission is going to happen. Like, no offense.
Labor commission or housing?
The Department of Housing Protections. I'm sorry. Like we even talked about it in budget approvals. Like I've gone to SUA asking for money for certain programs that I want to put on, but people don't even want to prove that because they don't even see documentation or see statistics or data about how that actually performs. And if I don't see statistics or data about how that department will perform, then I don't feel comfortable allocating money that could easily be allocated to something that I know does perform, like the student lobby conference. So for now, I think that will be fine. We can definitely find an intern within the president's office or within some IEP. There's a lot of interns out there, and I don't think that we're just going to let it drop like that, especially if it's $250,000. I definitely know that officers will find a way to make an intern for it. I don't think that it's necessary to make
make another interim position, especially if it's gonna probably go into the president's office anyway.
So yeah, so the housing allocations have $200,000. I see no issue with taking only $3,600, mind you, only $3,600 from that to make the intern for this. I don't see that's an issue. There is a proposal allocation letter that was sent to the SUA officers, and in one of the sentences, it says the proposal mentions activities such as dispersing aid to students and establishing paid internships for students. So part of that 200K is looking for establishing an internship for students. So it's only 3,600 at 200K. I think we can let that sit with itself. I think the next officer court can deal with this. We're trying to rush in allocations and bylaws and whatever in the next like 7 days. Mind you, we all have finals to deal with. It's not going to be done in the next 7 days. I'm not going to not use generic programming. We don't reserve this programming for one internship position. It is programming for a reason. So there is no reason why we're going back in circles with this. People made their points. Let's just get this done with. Midterm 10 o'clock tomorrow. We're actually get this done. We can pay the people from the 3,600 from the 200K. It's not that hard to do. It really isn't. Oh my gosh. I digress.
Adam. Okay, I'm gonna be blunt. I think that if anyone else proposed to move money to somewhere that wasn't like confirmed, we wouldn't even think about it. So I don't think that like talking about money that we haven't like seen bylaws for various reasons. Meaning, like, there's a resolution saying we can't. So even if we wanted to talk about it today, we could.
It's not a resolution, it's demands.
Just, but we approved them.
We did.
So, to my knowledge, when we approve a resolution or demands or whatever, that means we like want to follow them. So if we followed something that said like this needs to be met before we talk about it, we shouldn't talk about it until those demands were met. And so I don't know why we're even talking about this, because we already had this conversation where we're not going to talk about the Housing Commission until certain things were met that haven't been met yet. Am I allowed to motion to call the question now?
You are.
Great, then I'm going to do.
I motion to call the question made by Adam, seconded by David. Are there any objections on the question? Yeah. You can say your objection.
Yeah. When I got back that the proposal that I wrote for $200,000 was approved, if we don't take care of the process of how to allocate and create a democratic process for how to do that $200,000 this year, if we can't even have a conversation about those bylaws, if we can't even talk about what it does, without it giving anybody mandatory work or anything, because I already took that out, just about what it does. If we can't even have that conversation, I feel really, as a person who secured that money for students, and then to kind of be blocked by other students who are supposed to be advocating for more resources. I think that when it comes to, there's two conversations here. When it comes to the $3,100 and the generic programming, y'all can take that out, y'all can move money, y'all can do whatever you want. That's completely fine. That's cool. But when it comes to the actual bylaws, just be very aware of when you're talking about the bylaws and what we're trying to do, because remember that money was secured by the proposal that I wrote, and I'm trying to get these resources to be available to students in fall quarter. And any money that we take out of the $200,000 is money that will not be going to students who are being evicted off campus. So as easy as it sounds, taking $3,600, which is not true, it would be $7,200 because it's for 2 years. As nice, as small as it sounds, remember that the SUA money can be used to pay people, and the $200,000 can be used to pay. I'm going to put internships in that budget, but I will put it if the SUA ultimately wanted to do it. So you know what? I don't want to do any I don't want to prolong conversations or make things longer. But I just want y'all to be really aware of the fact that we're going to need to talk about certain important things about those bylaws today, and we're going to at least need to introduce the idea of them so that we can have a conversation. Even if that conversation is I don't want to do it next week. We're going to need to have a conversation. So that is my productive objection.
So we are now moving into a vote on whether or not to call the question on this motion. Can you erase the top one so it's clear? Thank you. On the second one, we're not voting on this motion, we're voting on this motion. All those in favor of calling the question, please raise your hands. Alright, I believe I have 20 in favor, 21 in favor. All those opposed? Cool. 0 opposed. Motion passes. All those in favor of moving 750 from SUA program to SLC? In favor, 17 in favor, all those opposed? 0 opposed. This is a change. Can we reflect that? 750 from SUA programming to SLC. Thank you very much. Yes?
This is a simple request, it's not even budgetary. I actually wanted to change one of the SUA Vice President Student Life interns officially to the SUA Food Pantry Manager from the History and Media Coordinator. I think that each office can do their own media coordinating, and then if need be, we can discuss as officers how we can collaborate more on making sure we do that, but my pantry manager needs to be there, so this might you all know that that's the person that's getting paid under my office. Yeah, just to change that and let y'all know that we don't have that anymore.
Is that a second step?
No, it's a discussion.
Okay, okay, so, just to be clear, it's just the semantics, it's just the title.
Yeah, just semantics. Yeah,
okay.
no budget.
I motion for Bella to just change this highlighted box, correct?
Mm-hmm.
To SUA Pantry Manager. Is that name one for you?
Yeah, that's your good thing.
To SUA Food Pantry Manager. Second by Anna. Are there any objections? Yes.
Yeah, no, not personal, but technically we can't vote on this because it's in the SUA Constitution that the Office of Student Life has that. We need to go through the SUA Constitutional Amendment to change that.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, I didn't think about that.
Technically, you're supposed to have that.
Oh, why?
I don't think you do. Okay, we don't. That's my attention. So let's continue discussion on this. Cool. Yes, is this a new point of discussion or is this discussion on
A
this?
new point of discussion.
Thank you.
I would like to motion to completely defund the whatever position that is and create a new position under Vice President of Student Life,
I think
which
we
is
can't do that with the Constitution. I think the Constitution is being
the Constitution mandates that we pay that position.
It's constitutionally mandated.
But
staff.
doesn't say that we pay it.
If it's mandated staff, we would be non-compensated mandated staff, which is illegal.
But they would be.
Okay. We are out of time again. I also mind you that the budget is not yet approved. We only approved changes to the budget. If we don't extend time right now, I am going to just have us vote on whether or not to approve the budget. If you want to make more changes, please extend time. These were just the budgetary requests. These are also highlighted on the agenda. And I have done it out. No, Adam? 5 minutes. I have a motion to extend time by 5 minutes, made by Adam, second by Regina. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we can extend 5 minutes. And these are the requests. Yeah.
Okay, since we've practically destroyed the council commissions, can we just move the rest of that money back into spring sofa?
I have a motion to move. Is that?
In 2,350.
Did you say 2,350?
2,350.
Yes, 2,350. So move 2,350 from generic programming, which would zero out that line item, into spring sofa. I apologize for the delay here.
413.
Thank you. Which currently has $19,620.80 in it. Is that a second?
Yes.
Alright. I have a motion by Eric to do that, seconded by Adam. Are there any objections?
Did you think I was second?
No, I got Adam as a second. Is that an objection?
Yeah, I just had, an idea, I guess, with the money. So each year, like this, it is an objection, so for this, the resident of student life office, our programming is cut short every year because we, help support with the Thanksgiving events during, the Thanksgiving weekend. And we're never, like compensated or thought, like our program is never thought to ever help other works, especially for self support. We give like about 1,000 each year for self support to be able to have food for students during that Thanksgiving week. I personally don't want to pull from SUA food parent, but we're very good with our money and making sure that we budget out well. You can still see it in the budget that we have. I even put estimates down so you can see it under my office, and you can look more at what we've been doing. But yeah, I just think it's like really important that our budget gets increased, especially with the amount of programming that we're doing.
Thank you.
I don't know how much people are going to, but this is just something I'm bringing up for the fact that that's programming that the people can do.
So we're opening up a new line of staff. Eric?
Can we make 2 motions at once?
No.
Can I motion to just amend that to put it down?
Yeah. Alright, so I have a motion to cut 1,000 from generic coding. It's a, yes. Alright, motion to put 1,000 from student life, into, no, it's 1,000 from generic programming into VPSL, officer programming, correct? Ellen, is
Yeah.
that officer programming we do?
Yeah, it's just my discretionary.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a second on that? Second by Shanita. Are there any objections? Yeah.
No, I guess I would just say that this is just a technicality. I would recommend putting it under the food pantry since it has to do with food. If it's under discretion, not saying that the next vice president will have intentions, but technically that discretion is up to them. So if they don't want to do it, they don't have to. But technically, it seems like we're voting on it specifically so that they can have more money for helping the DA students with the food. So I would recommend putting more money in the food pantry if it's not a big deal.
Okay. We have a motion and an objection, so we're going into discussion. Shanita.
Based on what previous speakers have said, if that's the case, I don't know if I'm gonna make a motion, but motion to move the $1,000 into its own separate line item for Thanksgiving dinners under the Vice President's Through Life program, like the sub line items that that's possible.
Okay. So according to my records, yes, you still resign. Are you, as the chair of BSU, are you all still resigning? Okay. Okay. Devon, I had you next time.
I double everything that Shania had said, making it its own line item. I 100% support that. So I was questioning this for Bella. I don't mind putting the rest of the programming back into the food pantry as a vessel. That's also a thing. That's up just if you want to or not. I also don't mind doing that. But were you able to make your motion? No.
No.
Okay, I make a motion to move that 1,000 from SUA programming to its own line item for Thanksgiving dinner. That's okay.
What's that?
Are we debating right now?
What's that?
Are we debating? That was a motion.
That was a motion.
Before that, didn't we object and then we're opening up for discussion?
Right, and this is an amendment of the debate.
Amendment, oh, this is amendment to the.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, this is our secondary amendment. Talk to this. Is there a second to that? Second, the motion by Devon to make a separate line item with the $1,000 Thanksgiving dinner under the food pantry, correct? Second by Eric. Are there any objections? Because the objection. No, that's. Are you objecting?
Yeah, sure. To say my objection, didn't we secure money from the DSU's office for the food pantry that when we secured additional, if I'm correct, 10 to 15,000?
No, it's only 10,000 here. We use about 2,000 for this quarter because we're trying to finish up any expenses that we have this quarter. So we have 8,000 left, which will get us close to about breaking even how we did this time around. But
about that expenses you never know each year. We kind of want to make sure that we have that consistent flow of money and that even though carry forward is not that great, I mean, for us at least, because SBD 5 is so weary, or like we just don't know really what you're going to get from SBD 5, it's nice to make sure we have the cushion. But I mean, we can, I mean, what, I don't know what you're trying to get at.
No, as a follow-up, no, I'm not talking about the SB 85 funds, I'm talking about the additional
Yeah,
funds
no,
from housing.
housing application.
Yeah. With the dear students?
Okay, so
I yield my.
You yield the objection.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are out of, you object.
Yeah, sure. There, like right now, the budget's at negative 2,500. Do we need to fill that out? So then, shouldn't we just, because that's about the same, shouldn't we just move it to the filled out prior to making it back to 0?
I will remind you all that we are now out of time. If we don't extend time, I'm just going to go through the current motion. We have the people just going to go through it and we're not going to do any more discussion.
Oh, dear God. Motion to extend time by 5 minutes.
I have a motion to extend time by 5 minutes by David. Yvonne, seconded by David. Are there any objections to extending by 5 minutes? Seeing none, we'll talk about this for 5 more minutes. Okay, we have a lot going on. So, is everyone following what's going on right now?
Following so good.
Everyone, should I do a recap or y'all?
These are making sense, resolution, there's not moving fast enough, just to clarify. These are making very much sense.
Secondary motion, secondary amendment, primary amendment, main motion.
Just a reminder, we are now in discussion, because there's a motion and objection, we are now in discussion on the secondary amendment. No, we can't make motions anymore on this until we vote through some things. I have nobody on staff for this debate.
Point of information.
Yeah.
Do we need to zero out the budget? Because right now the current year is a negative 18,000. So like negative 2,000 doesn't seem as bad.
We do need to do out the budget.
Great, then I think that should be the first priority.
Stephanie.
I reserve my right to make a motion. I think that we need to kill the current amendment and then make a new one that evens out the budget, and then we vote on the rest of it. And so I call the question.
Okay. Everyone clear what just happened?
Yes.
Cool. All right. All those in favor of calling the question?
Am I allowed to eat?
No.
20 in favor, all those opposed?
There's a rep right
Call the question?
No.
All right. We have passed calling the question. You can now be.
I get added on my external voting powers.
Because you can't vote by proxy. Damn.
All right. Yes. Yes, definitely.
Oh, Art.
I guess I feel like, wait, I'm sorry, I just think we never got a second on that calling question. So do you want a second? Okay.
With the
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, I'm counting Ben. Yeah. We don't have to anymore.
Wait, this is when?
Was it since we lost Enrique, like I said?
No.
No.
There was a person that
I
just
don't know, somebody. What's that?
I thought I replaced the
You must have lost somebody else somewhere.
No way.
No,
The motivation will be.
Were you tired? Yeah.
21.
I don't believe you've made any motions without voting.
Are you sure?
Are you sure?
I would say we should just probably cap that conversation. And take recommendations, and we have to approve the budget next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we're definitely not gonna get quorum next week, I promise.
That is awesome.
Well, we don't have a choice right now.
Oh.
If we don't get quorum next week, we
Someone
can
call
call
us.
it.
Wait, just chill.
Yeah, okay.
That's 20 people.
Yeah, let's 20 people. Let me calculate for it real quick. So, at 46 minus 41 is 45. So, 46 minus 1. So we start off with minus 3 because those representatives we never gone. Minus BSU, minus Alicia. That's 42 divided by, wait. This is
Is there anyone else here?
I'm ready.
No. Oh, that's additional?
There's no other reps.
wait, y'all have resigned?
Everyone else resigned.
The voting members are, my God.
I mean, I would have taken it.
Yeah.
I'm calling Lauren. I'm calling Lauren.
I couldn't finish that.
I'm so sorry. Is there any way that I should like disown Owen so that no longer counts?
Yeah, we called him and we gave him to resign.
No, right now though, the rest of the
We have to. I love that after for like 5 months, I still have this fucking.
Last year they were we, because the 5 big orgs, or the 4 big orgs, haven't technically resigned from the SUA,
So
Zach has been kind of counting them as folks who have.
no.
Right?
So what's been going on is we may or may not have quorum based on how you count quorum. So I have been counting quorum for this throughout this year, as I never got a letter from you or got an email designation from you. I don't count you as part of quorum when I calculate quorum. So usually, we have 46 total members of SUA at SUA's maximum. I've been counting quorum based off of like 42, 43, based on like the number of members that we have, and it fluctuates a little bit with designations and appointments. However, that's an interpretation of the Constitution that may or may not be valid, because there's another interpretation of the Constitution where 46 is what's quorum is based off of no matter what, because all those positions are positions that are guaranteed in the Constitution. And so if we don't have, that would be if we don't have 24 people, then we don't count quorum.
So I guess the question now is, obviously we have some work to do for next week's meeting, and we do have to touch base on this problem because we're going to have to address this in this entire year and see what's going to happen next for the SUA. But I think for now, seeing that we have a budget that we have been working on, and seeing that we now, according to Zach's statistics from earlier this meeting, according to how quorum is interpreted, technically we do have quorum based off your own interpretations. I think I want to do a straw poll and see how many folks would, I guess the question would be, how many folks would be comfortable continuing the meeting, now knowing, with voting, now knowing that technically it's unclear whether we technically have quorum, which is an issue that was brought up to us in fall quarter, the SUA officers, or whether we do not vote, since there is not a clear, and since there is not a clear, we just mobilize folks for next week. So, please raise your hand if you want to continue the meeting with voting powers.
Yes. For president and
Okay, hands down, and then raise your hand if you do not feel comfortable with voting, seeing that we do not have a clear quorum.
I try to keep permanent.
Okay, we can continue.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. In this
When we tour fields recently, that's one of the things. I want a lacrosse player. Stephanie, I want a lacrosse player with a really big stick.
Are you counting Ben?
Yes.
Alright, thank you so much for coming.
So you just give it
He doesn't respond to my text messages anymore. I texted him like 3 weeks ago. I was like, oh, our city sucks. So we're just telling you.
We're good on my way.
My city is
Okay, so first off, y'all are kind of incredible for staying this long and to kind of just sitting there while we discuss dumb stuff. Really, really major appreciate that. We are still talking about the budget, and we are out of time. I had some hands first. See, I saw your hand first.
Well, I want to call the question, but since we need to extend time, what should you extend time by?
I usually do it that we don't have to extend time if we're just voting. Like, just go through it if you don't extend time.
Let's vote.
Okay, if you all want to discuss more, then we need to extend time.
Point of clarification.
Yeah.
So that whole thing that we just talked about right now is not been voted on. So
This
if
has
we're-
not been voted on.
So if we don't extend time, then we are not voting on it.
We're just going to vote through it, and we're going to vote through to approving the budget, but there's going to be no room for discussion if we don't extend time. We're just going to move through the vote. And there's going to be no room to add anything if we don't extend time. Yes.
I reserve my right to make a motion.
Yeah.
I wanted to quickly restate that I want the secondary amendment to be axed and replaced with moving that funding to basically net zero the budget, or get as close to net zero as possible. So I just want to keep that in mind, and with that I'm going to motion to do nothing, since we can just do that right now. Okay. Oh wait, no, sorry. To introduce, I motion to extend time by 5 minutes.
Motion to extend time by 5 minutes made by Stefan, second by Regina. Any objections? Cool. Alright, so all those in favor, cool. I'm just going to vote here. Alright, so all those in favor, again, we're going bottom to top. All those in favor of creating a new line item of $1,000 under the food pantry, moving 1,000 from SUA programming to Thanksgiving dinner line item. If you're interested in doing what Stefan is doing, you would vote no on all of these. To be clear. Cool. All those in favor of that bottom one? 0. All those opposed?
Yes.
That's 21, 22 opposed. 22? 21.
I don't have
Alright, we don't all, okay. So this next one, 1,000 from SUA programming to just DPSL. Okay. All those opposed, all those in favor?
Whoa, sorry.
In favor?
Don't want to.
All those opposed?
Oh, right.
volunteer into spring sofa, which currently is about 20. 0 in favor, all those opposed? I count 21 in favor, 21 opposed, 21 opposed. Okay, all right. Yes, Stefan.
Motion to move the entirety of the funding currently allocated in SUA programming, general programming, or generic programming to address the current deficit in the budget.
So 2350 going to deficit in the budget. Can I get is there a second on that? Second by Eric. Motion by Stefan, second by Eric. Any objections? Seeing no objection, that motion passes. Can those changes be reflected, please?
It is.
Thank you very much. Okay, I believe we have like 1 minute left, 2 minutes left. Yes, Eric.
Motion to approve the budget.
I have a motion to approve the budget made by Eric, second by Stefan. So, yes. I got you. So I have a control.
175.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's 177.78.
It's 177.78.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So I have a motion to move 177.78 from spring sofa to fulfill the deficit. Actually, can we reword that? I am absolutely not doubting your math skills. With the off chance that that is wrong, can I just say fulfill the deficit that we currently have from spring sofa? Are we okay with that?
Just say fulfill the SUA deficit. That's okay.
Fulfill the SUA deficit from spring sofa. Adam, are you okay with that language?
If it's the same thing.
Not from spring sofa. From the
It's coming out of.
It's coming out. Yeah.
Okay. I have a motion by Adam to fulfill the deficit from spring sofa. Are there any? Is there a second by Eric? Right? Are there any objections? Seeing none, that motion passes. We have 1 minute left. Yes, Adam.
Motion to wait. Do you have something?
I just was wondering, so we're not doing the Thanksgiving event line item?
That hasn't been reintroduced. You need to reintroduce that. You need to reintroduce that in 1 minute.
I'm okay.
Motion to approve. Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Adam to approve the budget, second by Anna. Are there any objections to approving the budget at its most
You'll be re-elected.
Not objecting.
Seeing no objections, the budget is approved. We have next on our agenda.
Yes.
Oh, we're doing it next.
Thank you.
Still, motion to adjourn. But we have, I believe this next one is you. It's the code of conduct.
It's
Next year.
Okay.
First reading next year.
I'm so sorry.
This is literally the second time this has happened. This happened last week too.
Top of the agenda next year.
No,
First reading.
it's not important enough.
No, top of the agenda. First reading.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
We're scratching that. Okay. Yes.
Motion to adjourn our meeting.
I have a motion to adjourn. Seconded by Sila. And any objections to adjourn? Yes.
Question.
Yeah. No.
Just curious, how many of y'all would be down to, we need you to come meet separately outside of the SUA for about 30 minutes. There will be food, probably on Friday, after I meet with the 5 big orgs for these bylaws. How many of y'all will already know that this Friday, sometime this Friday, you cannot, again, we need to approve this and we need to get some stuff moving. So how many of you know that you cannot come?
I'll be on the plane.
Okay.
I'll be in
Thank you. I would like to give the floor to Zach.
Hold on. Yeah, so if you were to have it this Friday, you need to vote on it next Friday.
Because it says a week.
Yeah.
So as I was saying.
So.
I just want to clarify and get the intention of the objection.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, would it be crazy to? Yeah.
If you're starting off with, if it would be crazy, you know it's crazy.
Would it be crazy since essentially the concern last week was that folks are going to be assigned work when they weren't, when they never were consulted about that, folks won't be paid. And since I've removed that portion of the bylaws in terms of who the membership is until we have that conversation with the big five orgs, and then I can bring that conversation back on Tuesday saying, this is what the 5 big orgs want, can we approve that? Is it crazy to at least present what we have now and at least have some kind of possibility to be able to talk about it on next week? And again, if we don't do this, we will have no process or set anything set up for over the summer to collect, to create the foundation to collect the data. For next year, we talk about officers, this and that, but that's just, I'm saying, how many of you would be in objection to talking about, for about 2 minutes, the bylaws? How many of you would be in objection?
Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then how many of you would not mind and would be in favor of spending about 2.5 minutes to talk about the bylaws that I've worked on, and that we can at least discuss the issues? 1. Okay.
Debatable.
Okay, so I then yield.
We're moving into debate.
I yield.
On whether or not to adjourn. I had Emma.
Oh.
And then I had your hand as well.
Okay, so to be clear, everyone, like, if we don't put something in place this year, and that means that we need to talk about it now in order to vote on it next week. If we don't do that, just to be clear, if we do not have any system in place that we vote on next week, we will not have any system that governs the $500,000. That it's completely under the discretion of the next president, whom, whether or not, like, fine, we can trust them, great. However, that money is under the office of the president. It has absolutely no discretionary, it's completely up to the discretion of the new president, with zero, like, rules or, I mean, besides the pre-stipulated rules, there is absolutely no system in place to delineate this money. Next year, at all, there's no system, and it can be used however the next president wants to use it. It does not have to be used for helping evicted students. It does not have to be used for paying a lawyer. It doesn't have to be used for any of that.
Can the candidates for president currently in the room promise that they won't touch that money?
Okay,
So we
no,
can-
we can't do that because both the candidates are not in the room.
Okay, so I was definitely stuck.
You were next, yes.
Yeah, so.
What I don't understand is I just got cut off by a point of information, and then the next person.
Sorry, I apologize. Thank you for checking on that. Thank you.
So what I'm trying to say is that I think it's incredibly crucial. If you need to go home, go home. But if Io presents this now to the people who are willing to listen, we can vote on it next week. If we adjourn and he doesn't present, then we can't vote on it next week. We do not need quorum for him to present it. Let him present it, go home if you need to, but don't make it so that we can't even listen. That's not fair. That's my point. It's not a good idea to not have any system in place. If we don't like Io's system next year, we can get rid of it. But if we don't have any system in place next year, it does not make any sense, because that means that money can go anywhere the next president wants it to. And I'm not saying that next president may or may not be trustworthy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not trying to make that point. What I'm trying to say is that is not a good financial decision. Okay?
So there are 2 proposals that have been sent out to the officers for this. So there's a lot of things, right? One, I don't know if the big ethnic orgs or big 4 haven't even seen these bylaws. That's the first thing. Secondly, it doesn't matter if we're listening. I don't think it's important to listen to them if there's no guarantee we're going to vote on them the next week. I don't know who's going to be here next week, right before finals. I sure said not plan to be here next week. That's just not a thing. I don't know who other people are going to be here. So what's the point of listening to them? We're not going to have the ability to vote on them. I think that's just counterproductive and a waste of time, in my opinion. Secondly, I believe, from my understanding from the proposals that were sent to officers, they have to be used for what they were applied to. So the officer has to. No. Well, so here's the thing. You have no. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Y'all, UNC Law have opposed us sending this information out, but the proposals are in an email right now that I have. I have a problem in sending this out to the rest of y'all so I can read these proposals for yourselves. See, Lolly said that they were like wrong and miswritten. However, I think y'all should see something, because what the previous speaker is saying, like, I don't know if it is based on the fact that any of you seen the actual proposals? Have anyone asked anyone in this room who has the ability to vote on the bylaws seen the proposal? Besides the person who's applied for it? No one. So you are all assuming this based off of what? 2 sources in the room without reading it yourselves. That is a problem within itself. That's not transparent at all, but you want to vote on a proposal, bylaws proposal you have not even seen. So I'm genuinely confused why we vote on something other proposal you have not seen yet. But I have no problem forwarding this to Zachary and forward this to the rest of the assembly, because it hasn't been transparent. But I'm done.
I don't. Okay, let me check the thing on that. I do also want to make the point that Ian said that he's going to discuss this in 2 to 3 minutes. We've already spent 2 to 3 minutes discussing whether or not we want to discuss this, just so you all know. Eric.
I reserve my right to make a motion. Didn't we agree to demands that we would not talk about this in a SUA meeting? Therefore, we can't talk about it without adjourning. So, I would like to call a question to adjourn.
Okay. Okay, so on bylaw amendments in the Constitution, I just have 1 week notice must be given to the Assembly before amendments, creation, removal of any bylaws, which means, I guess, if I email it out tonight, then that might not be a problem, right? But then that also brings up the issue of the demands that we agreed to, right? So, is that a second?
No.
All right, I have a motion by Eric to call to question. Is there a second? Second by Bella. Are there any objections to call? Yes, Stephanie, you can see the objection.
Objection on the basis that that is not what the SUA agreed to. The SUA agreed not to approve the bylaws without consulting the BSU, without consulting and having those discussions. It is not in the document that we can't talk about it. I have it right in front of me. It says, we BSU demand that the approval of this body be postponed until proper solicitation and discussion with the Big Five takes place.
Okay, thank you.
We can still talk about it. We can still have that be presented.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're voting on calling the question. All those in favor of calling the question on whether or not to adjourn? Yes. Yes, I have 3 in favor, 4 in favor, 5 in favor of calling the question. All those opposed to calling the question? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, okay. 7, 8, 9, 10 for the record. Okay. We're still in debate on whether or not to adjourn. Yes.
Cool. Perfect. Previous speaker mentioned the Big Five, and I can speak on this because I know. We have not seen the bylaws. We have not seen a proposal for the bylaws. We don't know what the Student Housing Appropriations Committee is going to look like. And speaking personally, this whole process seems rushed. This is $500,000 we're talking about. Y'all saw when the Big Five came and turned up over $30,000. So $500,000 to be voted on within a week is ridiculous. I'm sorry, like, if y'all, like, if that's what y'all want to do, that's cool, but just know, like, we are not going to stand for that. Is that recorded? Yeah. No? Oh, okay. We aren't going to stand for it at all. Sorry, I was going to curse. But yeah, this is an expedited process, given that we just found out about, like, the whole school just found out about this money, but all of a sudden, like, we're going to approve it into motion, like, without even looking at it. Like, there's no, who honestly knows what this money's going to look like? Who honestly does? That was a rhetorical question. Exactly. So the fact that we're trying to approve bylaws for $500,000 that no one has even seen. I've been checking the agenda all day long to look for these bylaws and have not seen these bylaws.
So these bylaws were part of...
Oh no, they were added at like 6 p.m. Yeah, no, I saw them at like way later, 6 p.m. I was looking at 12, I was looking at 8 a.m., I was looking at 10 a.m. Like every 2 hours I was checking the agenda because I knew it was going to be on the agenda for today. And it wasn't there until, what, 2 hours before the meeting? And then they got removed because I thought we weren't going to talk about it. But yet here we are still talking about it. It's week 9. People got midterms to study for, they got finals to study for. Go home. We can work on this next year. Like, it's cool. It's $500,000. It's better to not rush through this process than to rush through it and fuck it up. And then you have the whole school mad. So.
Stefan?
Y'all, I'm conflicted. Because on one hand, those are some fantastic points made by the previous speaker. And two, Those are some fantastic points made by Anna, or another previous speaker. And the kind of, the breakdown as I understand it is that we don't want to rush through a process that the BSU hasn't been able to consult on. And at the same time, we also don't want to leave this $500,000 without any sort of discretion or adhering to any sort of like SUA governing procedure so that it's not used arbitrarily. So we're kind of stuck a little bit between a rock and a hard place here because I don't want to see us rush through this process. And I also don't want to see us have no process, no sort of accountability. I personally don't see harm in seeing these bylaws and in seeing the proposals that my previous speaker talked about. Because I want to see all of the information before I make a decision representing College 9 students. And that's like crucial to our responsibilities in here. And so this is going to be a tough call. And I know that I'm going to be willing to sit here, the nerdy computer sciences major that I am, and listen to the bylaws and listen to the case. And then I may very well vote against them next week. Well, actually, I'll be on a plane, so I won't be able to do that. But to at least make an informed decision. Because I am concerned with transparency. I don't think that this process has been very transparent. And I was the one who put the bylaws on the agenda as Zach's assistant, because I wasn't sure what was going on with the presidential address, so I just added what I thought we were going to be discussing on. We need to be informed. We need to have an understanding of what this money is going to be used for. And if we don't, I don't think it's fair to, like, one, arbitrarily restrict the knowledge of the space, because I think that is one of the most grossly negligent things that we could possibly do. And two, I also don't think it's fair for us to be approving legislation that invokes certain spaces without even their consultation or their consent. So I'm stuck, and I want to hear the bylaws. I don't want to approve them. That's where I stand right
now. Yeah, I will add to that that it's also on that they want it up until 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Alright,
Bella. Okay, I have a few things. So, as far as the document and showing you the document, I would be more than happy to show you the document. I wanted to send you the document. However, after some discussion with Dami and other officers, other officers did not want it to be sent. So, again, transparency. I'm back to the whole concert debacle, and like I'm honestly pissed and heated right now because the transparency thing comes up again. And I think you're seeing my face get really pissed off right now because the whole fact that that thing happened in the fall was because there was no transparency. And I need y'all to be like seeing all the shit that I'm seeing because I'm frustrated that I'm seeing it and you're not. Because I can't make it clear to you, and I need to show you. So I would be fine showing you the letters. And on those letters, it clearly states Student Union Assembly. It doesn't say Office of the President. It doesn't say these offices. So again, these are letters that you need to see. Another thing, it says the President is the spearhead. They lead the project. However, so is Garrett under there, and so is Jay. So there's a lot of misconceptions with how it was written because of the fact that they just automatically think because IO, the president, is the president of the SUA's overall fiscal responsible leader of the SUA, that they're going to have to deal with the project. It doesn't mean that we can't add people on. I've talked to Garrett about this letter already, and he's already addressed and spoken to me that we can add people on to this letter. So I don't see why, if we're putting so much work in trying to pass these bylaws, why we couldn't just change the letter to make sure that it's more transparent and clear that it's not just the president that has control over this money. It was admin's fault for not putting all the officers on this or putting something with more people than just one person on this letter, and it's not okay for the president to have to feel like they have the burden. But again, like, this should have been addressed when we first got that letter, and it was, but I should have been pushed more to be able to get that. And additionally, if we're rushing it now, like, I don't understand why we couldn't bring these bylaws up, like, way back then. I mean, when I made the proposal, I made the proposal with all the information already, like, completely stated. At least that's what was told to other officers, and because of that, that means that that information, the bylaws should have been made, which means that that should have been approved to the SUA and given information to the SUA, knowing that we're probably going to get that $200,000, and also already notifying the the Big Five about this. And if the Big Five was in that proposal, that means that they were already, before this whole issue, right now, before this whole issue, they were already addressed in this $200,000 statement. So they were long, this was long an issue before they were even brought up in last week's meeting with bylaws. So I mean, there's a lot of issues with this and transparency, and I'm just really frustrated that y'all can't see exactly what I'm seeing, and I want to discuss more with officers to send this to you, and making sure that you see all the documentation, but I think you should see the documents before the bylaws, so you can have your own bias or your own opinions before you get a bias from the bylaws themselves.
Motion?
So there's this talk about transparency, and I don't know what happened in the past, I don't know any about that. Right now we're in this meeting, right now we're talking about this bylaw being presented, and I don't see why we as a governing body would voluntarily decide not to see information that we need to make a future decision. Like right now, all we're talking about is seeing the information, not voting upon it. That's next week. Go back to your spaces, get your spaces ideas about this. Talk to, we need to talk to the Big Five. I agree, but I just said he's setting up a meeting on Friday, and then we can see what the Big Five wants, and we can change the bylaws. I don't see why we can't. For transparency's sake, we need all the information. Send out the letters, send out the proposal. Let's talk to the Big Five. Let's set a meeting. I don't understand what the problem is, and I'm getting frustrated because I've been here for a long, long time, and we've all been here for a long time, not just but all of us have been here for a long time. We keep circling back to this point of transparency. Let's do transparency. Let's be transparent right now. Send out the letters. Let's talk about this proposal. Let's get out of here. 2 minutes, guys. Come on. Thank you.
Adam, previously, a while ago, this conversation started a while ago, it was mentioned that there were certain things in the bylaws that changed to help satisfy what was mentioned last week. Do you feel like you've been satisfied?
I don't even know what the bylaws look like.
So then, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So there's a lot that's been said today, and I'm just going to go really fast. Number one, I understand the concerns. Number one, the Big Five orgs didn't have those concerns last week. It was Mecha, by Nihan, and BSU, because those were the signers, if I'm correct. Sanai, that I've talked to, some folks, I wasn't correct. Does Mecha, BSU, and by Nihan represent those? Well, even if they do, that's not the point. The point is that they talked about approving those bylaws, and I'm just talking about showing it to y'all. We talk about, oh, we don't know what it looks like, let me show it to you. The bylaws are accessible on the agenda. All I want to do is be able to talk about it. We talk a lot about what the president can do, what they can't do, what the letter says, what the letter doesn't say. Valmia, unfortunately, does not know what's going on because she has not been in conversation with the dean students, which is why we did not want to send it out in the first place, because the fact that it was incorrect, according to the conversation that I've had with the dean of students and with the division of student success. Y'all have my approval to send out the letter to the entire SUA. That's completely fine. What I'm saying is that it is not up to date, it is not accurate. So, my point is this, we need to build some kind of foundation. We do not have to approve what was being presented today. We do not have to even, say, oh yeah, let's go ahead and just disregard what has been said, previously. All y'all need to do is just listen to it, so that way we have some kind of basis for why we can or cannot vote on it next week. The 5 big orgs, again, I have reached out to them last week. I will reach out again, and I will reach out more aggressively, and I'll try my best to set up a meeting and make sure that they're met. And y'all have my promise that if I do not meet with the 5 big orgs next week, I will make sure that Zach does not put that on the agenda. We will make sure that we meet with the 5 big orgs, since we can't technically vote on it. But again, even the idea of having the 5 big orgs participate in this bylaw was the idea of the office of the president. Right? In that proposal, I never said, these are the students who are going to be in charge of it. It was my idea to say, hey, since people of color get discriminated against in Santa Cruz housing market in higher rates and more proportion than non-people of color, why don't we give the people of color of SUA, the organizations that represent them, power over $200,000? That was my idea. Now that I've seen that I've got backlash from my idea, all I want to do is say, okay, you know what, let's not even talk about who's going to be the committee members of this. Let's just at least talk about what I'm trying to do. If you look at the bylaws that I'm about to present, that I would like to present, you would see that I actually took off that this org, it has to do this org has to do that. Basically what I just said was that ideally the orgs, the SUA will make an agreement with the orgs in the future on how representation is. But for right now, like I don't think there's any harm in just being able to present the bylaws just so that we have a foundation to be able to carry a conversation next week. I do like it. Like I have worked very hard to secure this money in the first place. I'm not saying that this is a done, be it all system. I just want to see something that we can work with, at least for this week, at least for next week. Something, and then we can carry our conversations. SUA can say, you know what, we don't like that. Wait, no, the orgs don't want to do this. Let's change it fall quarter of 2019. But ultimately, we need, like, I just, like, we need to present, like, this is ridiculous. I'm sorry, it's ridiculous to me. Like, we spent about 15 minutes talking about why I cannot present a bylaw for 2.5 minutes. That makes no sense to me. Please stop being so difficult, y'all. Let's just, like, not be a barrier to ensuring that students get resources on time when I already promised them. I sent out an entire campus-wide email March of this year to the entire student body saying we secured that money and saying that we're going to be working to get that money. All I want to do is make sure that we can move forward with this. There was no issue presenting. Again, the 5 big words that we talked about, they said specifically that they did that we cannot prove on it. So let's just at least talk about it. Not even talk. Let me just. I could have said the entire presentation in that entire speech that I just talked about, but instead we're going back and forth on what actually we talked in the first place. Like, please let's move forward. Please.
So, the bylaws had the adverse effect of being deleted when we deleted the presidential debate from the agenda. They are in the folder now. Other thing is, if you all want to stop talking about stuff, you call to question on this motion, and then you vote it down. Okay? I'm sorry if that was unclear. I have Soma next on staff.
I yield my time.
Okay.
Or can I call it my motion to call the question?
You can. Is there a second? I have a motion to call the question by Soma, second by Hayo. Are there any objections to calling the question? Which is a vote to vote on. Seeing no objections, the motion passes. We're voting on adjourning. All those in favor of adjourning, so requires a 2/3 majority. All those in favor of adjourning. Adjourning as we end the meeting, we don't discuss anything about. Alright.
Do we have
7.
spell walkout?
I counted 22 people. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Quorum right now is 20. It is full time calculating it my way. Or 21.
20.
You count 20?
I don't count.
Do you count that?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I count 21 with Ben.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
There's 20.
1, 2,
I don't know.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
There's 20.
20 is 20. There is
20 is
20.
quorum, correct?
No. Wait, okay, so quorum is, well, so 39 divided by 2. What is this? Somebody
19.5.
19.5.
20.
Plus 1 is 20.5.
21.
So 20. So we don't have quorum, so the meeting is over. So you can still talk about what you want to talk about now. This sucks that we just wasted 20 minutes talking about whether or not to talk about it, and now you're just going to talk about it because we're not voting on it. That's what just happened.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we've had presenters present before without quorum before a meeting.
Yeah.
Does it still count as a presentation? So if he presents his bylaw and everybody leaves except me, whatever. And if we don't have quorum, whatever he presents, does it still count as presenting?
The Constitution says it needs to be presented a week before. It doesn't say it needs to be presented at a meeting. It says that quorum has to be present at a meeting. I can email it out to you all tonight. Yeah, I don't know. I personally don't see a problem with talking about it now. People who want to leave, and then people who want to hear about it, stay. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
It's not on the agenda, right?
It wasn't on the agenda because we removed it, we removed the presidential address.
Yeah. I would say that technically, no, this wouldn't count as a presentation, but since we could, if you send it out tonight to the SUA, I mean, if I send it out, because I have to present it, right, technically, so I have to show present it to the SUA virtually, right, then that could potentially count. But I would still recommend that nobody leave if possible, but if you have to, that's okay. I just want to take 2 minutes of your time to briefly talk about the bylaws.
Go for it. Should I pull up the document?
Yeah, please.
Cool.
You have until 11:47.
Okay, I'm going to talk about it for 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Ready? All right. I'm going to get down to the itty-bitty grits of it. Basically, the whole idea is to create a committee of student housing appropriations to appropriate the money. I've already said that to UCOP, I said that to the administration. I want to create a committee that's in charge of this. I want to create a separate, the reason why I really want to get this approved by next week is because I do not want the president or any officer to have power over this. No matter what they said, ultimately, and the reason why we didn't want to send out the negotiation, the form, the document was because it's not updated. It's not what we agreed on. The Division of Student Success are trying to say that we need to do it in this way, and I'm saying no, SUA needs to have autonomy. And that's the reason why it's been so prolonged. So, like, again, when it comes to the committee, the idea is to set up a committee on student housing appropriations, have 10 folks, ideally, okay, now I'm not even going to say that, that's too complicated. Ideally, it'd be 5 from the Big 5 orgs and 5 appointed from SUC, and they would meet together, and then the chair of the committee is appointed by the SUA. And then the purpose is of this committee shall be to provide aid to UC Santa Cruz students, centered on alleviating burdens of egregious housing crisis and displacement in Santa Cruz. When I fought for this money, when I created that proposal, I had the vision in mind for it to go directly to students. Let's say Emma is about to be evicted from her housing, and she only has 2 days to come up with like a mortgage of an additional $450, $500, because right now she only has $200 and she cannot afford to stay in her apartment. What she would do is she would come to the SUA and say, hey, I'm about to be evicted in a few days, can y'all help me? The committee will convene, the committee will get basically say, okay, motion to, literally what we do in the program, motion to send individual case number 1 or, you know, Emma, $450 directly, like pay money. And then someone will second, and then we'll approve, and then they'll go on. Again, like, it's very simple. It's just basically it's what the SUA does, except it's a separate committee, and the money that we give isn't going to programming, it's going to help students who are being evicted. I want the committee to also create a criteria of how it votes for the money. I didn't want to put that up here right now because it's too controversial right now. So I just want, so next fall quarter, the committee head, the president, whoever it will come to y'all. I can send out recommendations of what y'all should be voting on in terms of like the money, what they should be voting on. But the committee will go ahead and decide how to appropriate those funds, and then the SUA will approve those credentials, and then the committee can start sending out money. So there's a lot of, I try to do a lot of checks and balances on this. The committee oversees and facilitates the disbursement of aid to the students most at risk or surely subject to houselessness or the health of their living conditions. Again, it's to also not just help people who are being evicted, but let's say Emma has mold in her apartment, and the landlord is saying, that was you did that mold. You need to pay, you know, $300 to clean this mold. Emma's saying, I don't have $300 to clean this mold. We can do 2 things. Number 1, the proposals I wrote can give Emma that money directly to take care of the mold. Number 2, Emma can come to us for legal services that we've also secured money for, $250,000, and then we can get her case litigated. So again, it's about centralizing all of the resources, and lastly, the entire vision is beyond this committee, it's about the department. I want this department to operate in a way that it is maximizing its amount of revenue, which means that we are institutionalizing the $450,000 that we were able to secure. Is that foreign? That's foreign. We missed it. But the idea is to institutionalize the money. So people who, basically, the the job of the SUA president right now is not to secure money for housing or anything. The job of the SUA is, the president is to just, do whatever is said in the Constitution. But basically, the idea is to create a department where it relies on folks who are consistently doing the work to also advocate for increased funding and also increase the amount of data collection. The idea of data collection is that so we can institutionalize the funds by showing UCOP, showing the UC systems, showing UCSC administration that these funds that we've secured are actually impacting students in large numbers. So the person who's going to chair this, the person who I created a job position for in the budget, would be in charge of getting that data, would be in charge of assembling the committee, would be in charge of really doing this and giving monthly report backs to the SUA regularly. So, I mean, again, the partner shall exist to ensure proper data collection, and then the departments shall centralize housing-related resources. So not only do we provide resources, I'm done, but we also provide, we also connect with the dean of students to connect select support to the department, so that way we can also refer students to select support, and the select support can be like, oh, you have the credibility of the student body saying that you need help, let's go ahead and help you. Even though they're still great now, we can also create that pipeline of resources. So connecting the resources to the campus, hearing what other student governments have to say in other UCs to improve our efficiency, and ultimately just having folks who are in charge of the $200,000 to be given to students who are evicted. If we do not approve these by next week, that is okay. It's going to be mainly within the president and within whatever the bylaw said. But again, I really want to create a democratic process before we leave. That is my 3.5 minutes. Any questions? Emma?
So to be clear, in like one sentence, okay, actually this is a yes or no question.
Yeah.
Is the purpose of this bylaw to create a committee comprised of students to oversee allocation of the $2.5 million that or whatever, however $200,000 that is going to be given to students who need help with housing?
Yes.
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 Okay.
That is the main creation. Just create a committee to distribute the money. That's the main reason. That's it.
And that's all it said. I mean, I haven't read through every line, but that's all it said. It does not say like, oh, they have to do all this other stuff. It's just creating a committee.
In terms of the job description, basically the job description is what we just said. Disperse funds, and it goes into a little bit more detail, but basically, yeah, disperse the funds and help students, yes.
Okay, great.
I don't put a job anymore, but if you are trying to answer questions in the way of the hands, I got 7 chase here.
Okay.
When it comes to this legislation, if it doesn't pass next week, and I'm not saying it necessarily should or shouldn't, what we can do to ensure that this money is used responsibly is just make a motion that says that this funding has to be used with the SUA's consent. So that would be like a worst case scenario if there was a tangible fear that that like over the summer or the office of the president wouldn't be using this money properly. That would be a quick way. It's not a bylaw. It's not part of the Constitution because this funding isn't in the Constitution or in the bylaws. It would be a binding motion just by the SUA because the executive board has to listen to what the SUA does. That's where it derives its authority in addition to the student body. So if people are like concerned about that and they don't have time, that would be like a safeguard. I just want to make sure that that was out there because I'm not here next week.
Oh, jeez. I was just going to ask, could you bring that up next week? But I will try to remember.
Said today about establishing a committee. And based off your point, yes, you're correct. The proposal already proposes a committee, but ultimately what we need to say is this committee has the authority. And we don't have to necessarily specify, we don't have to give it the actual power to do it fall quarter or anything. We just say that this body has the authority, and depending on how my conversations go with the Big 5 orgs, if 3 of them even meet with me, then we can talk about what folks said. But currently in this version, it is not the version where it says, oh, the 5 orgs have to do anything. It just, which it never was. It always was, they have the option to reserve, they have a reserved seat, and if they opt out, then they can opt out. But they don't have to do anything that they don't want to. So basically, instead of, because that was so controversial that I gave the 5 orgs the opportunity to do that, I just took it out and said, it will be approved by the SUA later on, and then I'll change that line when I meet with them and see what they want.
Does that have anything to do back with UCOP because the proposal's been changed of what the funding's being used for? And who's in charge?
So basically, the only thing that cannot change about this proposal is the fact that there's going to be a committee. That cannot change. That has to be something. And that the money has to be used for what I said right there in the purpose and charge. That essentially is what I said in the proposal.
And then, so who's in charge of releasing those funds and determining whether or not it falls in the proposal or not? Is that UCOP?
Falls in the proposal?
So if we violate the proposal and we don't create a committee, who says you can't receive these funds anymore?
That would be UCOP. Well, that would first be the Division of Student Success, which is the people that are fighting right now to get the autonomy, to be able to have the power to do everything that we're talking about right now. The Division of Student Success would probably bring it up, but we have to do a yearly report, a mid-progress report to UCOP by June of 2020, detailing all of the ways that these funds impacted students, which is why I really want to get it started in the fall quarter, so we have much more data saying that, oh no, we helped these many students in the fall quarter, and then potentially showing UCOP that we can handle the funds so that they can institutionalize the money to us every single year.
So I also emailed the allocation proposals that were sent to us. So there are two Zach. So Zach needs to send that to y'all, so y'all can actually see the proposals. Silali and I have said there's some things that have not been written right. There's some things incorrect in the document. But I think that regardless, that you should all have it kind of a reference to something that you should see. I think that the problem that I've had this whole process was seeing the bylaws without the proposal. Now you have a proposal hopefully by tonight, Zach sends it out. So then you can actually have a full picture of everything, and that way you can make an informed decision next week, which I would support that.
So I don't know job anymore, but I recommend that you call Eric and then call our certificate.
Yes.
So I have a lot of questions about the proposal.
Yeah.
One is, where did you originally want the $3,600 to go?
Yeah, I wanted to go to the chair of this committee because they're going to be doing all the data collection, they're going to be doing all the work, and they need to be compensated.
So do the people that were appointed also get paid, or is like?
Yes, they'll all be paid by SUC.
Got it. Okay. I
Did
just
you
want to
ask
say,
the real quick? UCOP, by the way, is the president, SUC. Y'all look like this. Sorry.
Thank you.
I don't know, like, I've been to those SEOC, like, C4 meetings, and then it just seems like they have a lot of trouble filling SEOC seats.
Sorry.
Yeah, they just, I don't know. It seems like the chair's gonna end up doing everything, even if you have positions open for everybody. They might not want to fill it because it's just $15 an hour and you get like 3 hours a quarter.
Well, according to the bylaws that I wrote, the committee can't even meet unless it has quorum. So it would be the job of however we plan to fill these seats for them to be filled by week 5 of fall quarter, so that we can move forward with that project. So they won't be able to move that quorum. Yeah.
I just worry about that because I feel like you're not going to be able to convince anybody to like join with just that CMC guy.
Yeah, that probably is true, which means please brainstorm, take it back to your space, see who should decide. I was assuming that SUA, as a body, can decide, but I thought that was too time consuming for our meetings. But that may be something that folks are just comfortable with. So I will just take it back to your space and see what they say. Yes.
Who is holding on to the funds right now?
Me.
So they're in your budget?
They're in the office of the president, yes.
So the third, how much is it in total? 500,000?
So technically, yes. So technically,
what's the total amount you got from UCOP?
450,000.
Okay, so that amount is sitting in your
office
right now.
Yes.
And so you're worried about it being transferred to the next person. My other question is, so you received those funds, right?
Yes.
And my thing is, will UCOP redact those funds if it's not followed by the proposal that you submitted? Because normal practice of allocation is you submit a proposal, then you are allowed to use those funds as long as you're using them for what you said. Mm-hmm. Now you changed the proposal for tonight, and so it's a different proposal than what UCOP sees.
I didn't.
So this is the exact proposal that UCOP sees.
This is the exact thing that I proposed. I didn't get into the details of what that committee is going to be because I wanted to do that vague so that the bylaws can explain that. But I established a committee. I didn't get into detail what they do, or who they are, or the purpose of the charge. I just said that a committee will be created.
Yeah. Just to address your question just a little bit more, The bylaws are for governing the funds, not for how the funds are being used.
Yeah.
The UCOP proposal is how the funds are being used. So this is kind of a separate animal, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Great. Any other questions? Awesome.
We hit midnight exactly.
Can we vote on this if we get quorum?
We will